First on the agenda tonight is to approve the minutes from the August 23rd meeting. Can I have a motion? Sherry, second. Brendan? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is to review and approve the agenda. First, I'd like to ask for a motion to amend the agenda to add an action item regarding Eversource on-bill financing, which has to do with the LED lighting replacement at Saks Middle School. May I have a motion to amend the agenda? Brendan, second. Jen, all in favor?
Gina, I just have a question because I have the old agenda that was given to me at 3:30 today, and so is everything else on the action items except just something was added?
Yes, it's an addition of an action item. No other changes to the agenda.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep. Okay, all in favor? Sorry, we'll just take the vote again to be sure. Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, with that, may I have a motion to approve the amended agenda? Jen, second. Pat, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, next up is comments from the public. The Board of Education expects mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among all individuals on school property, at school events, and in communications with district employees. The board encourages positive communication and discourages volatile, hostile, or aggressive actions. The board seeks public cooperation with this endeavor. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. And I'd like to acknowledge some public comments we received by email today. We received 2 public comments related to our goals on DEI from Alejandra Zamora and Alyssa McKenzie, and another public comment email on school start times from Lisa Hanich. So at this time, if you would like to address the board, please raise your hand and I'll motion you to come up. Go ahead, come on. Thank you.
I think I can take down the mask because
Yes.
okay, great. Okay, I'm Inessa Moroz from Mianas Road. My husband and I took COVID seriously from the very beginning. We got our N95 masks in January 2020. By early March, we told our parents to stay home, and we ourselves started wearing the masks and gloves on the subway. People were laughing at us. What are you doing? Masks don't work. The CDC was swearing up and down that masks were not effective, not needed, don't wear masks. Fast forward a few months, and now the CDC is saying to wear masks all the time, even outside, and that's what everyone is doing. They're even trying to socially distance their dog from our dog while out for a walk, because I guess dogs can't wear masks. Countless studies are available all over the world that COVID almost never spreads outside, and yet it takes the CDC over a year to incorporate them. I have a PhD in math. I worked as an assistant professor at Caltech. I was the first female ever to get an award for the best dissertation worldwide in the field of mathematical logic. I hate to bring up credentials, as I believe many people can engage in valuable dialogue on the issue, but it becomes necessary at this point since our abilities for processing information is under question. I am well equipped to verify the data and results myself from original studies, not New York Times or CNN, or the other side like Fox News or Zero Hedge. As you will soon see, reporters misrepresent the data and the results. The CDC cites studies to support its recommendation for masks in schools. An early study looked at classrooms in North Carolina, all of which had mandatory masks, and after seeing a low incidence of COVID cases over 9 weeks, determined masks are necessary and effective. This is a common error, but you cannot conclude that something works without comparing situations with and without it. A more recent study, this time by the CDC itself, actually compares classrooms within Georgia with different masking and ventilation situations, and I'd like to quote from that study. The lower incidence in schools that required mask use among students was not statistically significant compared with schools where mask use was optional. This finding might be attributed to higher effectiveness of masks among adults who are at higher risk for COVID infection, and so on. If there were a massive effect from these mandates, a study this large, with this large a sample size, would have seen a statistically significant one.
Thank you. That's 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laurel Van Hooser. I live on Heritage Hill.
No study and no expert source currently has the evidence to conclude masks for children are effective in lowering the incidence of COVID in school. The science is not clear, it is uncertain. I am aware that many journalists misrepresent this, and as a result, many people think otherwise. The CDC is upfront about this, so why are they recommending masks? To quote from the study just mentioned by Anessa, because universal and correct use of masks can reduce COVID transmission and is a relatively low-cost and easily implemented strategy, they recommend that children over 2 wear them anyway. Unfortunately, much of the rest of the world disagrees. The WHO is adamant that children under 5 should not be wearing masks. In the UK and across much of Europe, no one under 12 wears masks. In Iceland, elementary schools never even closed and have never had masks. Each of these authorities is just as much an expert. There are children for whom masks may be no big deal, like the CDC says, but not every child is in this position. In this community, we have autistic children. We have children who are ESL, like Anessa's daughter, and we have children who have gone to the ER due to an unseen allergic reaction while they were wearing a mask. The pediatricians of these children and of many other children recommend they do not wear masks due to the harm they cause. This isn't some quest for personal freedom at all costs. Is it right to say we should sacrifice these children to the known harms of masks for the perceived good of the community when there is no proof that masks decrease the spread of COVID in schools in any meaningful way? Does the clear cost to these children outweigh the uncertain benefit of masks? How many children did we harm by masking them outside and in school unnecessarily for an entire year? It is clear that masks are harming some children. Are we okay with this? We should at least be allowed and encouraged to ask these questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Miller from North Wilton Road. I would like to take my time to speak about a knock-on effect of this contentious issue in our community and how it is permeating through from parents to the children and ultimately within our schools. Bullying in our town by adults, whether it's on social media or other mediums, has increased significantly, and some of the things I have seen are deeply shocking at best and flat-out hateful at worst. Parents lead by example. What I heard from some of the parents during a speech in the August 16th meeting was shocking, completely unbecoming, and rude. One person ultimately grew into a chorus yelling, "Stop," isn't appropriate. It is ultimately up to the board to end the speeches. Yes, it was beyond the 2 minutes, but that kind of behavior from adults is saddening and incomprehensible. Many in this community are afraid to express their displeasure with the mandates because they are afraid of the retaliation. These concerns range anywhere from targeting someone's career to actually targeting children of those whose parents may disagree. Direct harassment and disparagement towards others has caused immense levels of stress and anxiety for some, leading to discomfort at what should be fun community and school events. The number one reason people move to New Canaan is the schools. I would argue that the second reason is the social fabric of our town. How family-oriented it has always been and community-inclusive as a whole, whether it's Family Fourth, the holiday stroll, or countless other things that make New Canaan so special. Nobody wants this vitriol and attacks at all, yet some parents have embraced it as necessary to keep others silent and to shame. Quite sad to see. This is happening real time in New Canaan. I urge for greater pushback from the board to fight to make this a local issue to the various statewide departments versus individuals taking it up in Hartford. This requires speaking up prior to the EO expiration in addition to fighting back even if it is after an extension. We should have a say in the community in which we live. Lastly, on August 16th, one speaker mentioned sacrifice in favor of wearing masks. Does that not cut both ways? Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Rita Bettino, 94 Fieldcrest. My comments are actually regarding school start times. I'm here tonight on behalf of many of my parent friends to urge you to consider expediting the new start times implementation. The change has been 10 years in the making, I've heard, and now that the plans are finally solidified, thanks in large part due to this board and Dr. Letzi, I strongly urge that you consider implementing them after coming back from the 2021 holiday break, rather than waiting until April or even worse, next fall. One reason, of course, is to address sleep deprivation for adolescents and teens whose body clocks start to shift in middle school and continue in high school, causing learning challenges at a pivotal time. But I'm particularly concerned with safety issues, namely the incidence of drowsy driving for teens and a concern for some of our 7th and 8th graders who are at bus stops at 6:30 a.m. and will be waiting for the bus in the dark post daylight savings. We know that waiting at bus stops in the dark will not be an issue for any of our children with the new start times, but it is an ongoing and worrisome issue right now for many. It would be a perfect time to reset and implement new start times coming back from the long holiday break and in anticipation of darker winter mornings at the bus stop. If getting new buses are an impediment, could there be an option to use old buses? Somehow, something to begin the change earlier. I implore you to be innovative and creative and consider moving up start time implementation for the overall health and safety of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board? Okay, seeing none, move on. Thank you. First tonight is reports and recognition with the exciting principals opening day report, so always a favorite on this first meeting since school started.
That's right. I know it's unusual to have a meeting on a Wednesday night, but we typically have this meeting on the Tuesday night after Labor Day. And so with our extended holiday weekend this year, we wanted to still provide an opportunity for our principals to come in and share some news and an update on their opening of school this year. So without further ado, we'll begin with Mr. Egan here at our high school. And yep, he's earned it. He's earned the top spot this year, and he got top billing on the agenda, you see. So.
For those of you who didn't hear me, I said I did speak my first year first, and then after that, I haven't spoke first. So it's the second time in 7 years to be back up. So.
Stick around.
Awesome. It's always great to be here in front of all of you tonight. It's a privilege to speak in front of the board. Being the principal in Canaan High Schools is one of the joys of my life, and it's always a privilege to lead one of the best high schools in the state and the country. So the start of every year always brings a newfound excitement for me. You know, truly, I think it's, well, I talk to the staff always about it being my favorite day of the year. Some people will argue that maybe the last day is the favorite day of the year too, but you know, truly, I think both of those days have their merits for different reasons. But it really is something I genuinely look forward to. Everybody comes back to school wanting to be the best they can be, and truly is ready to come back with a newfound vigor. This year, you know, it was different for us because last year we returned to school and we were in a hybrid mode and kind of a different environment. So this year, we come back to school with everybody here, mostly vaccinated, and truly, you know, it's wonderful to have our kids back together, vibrant, and being able to work together in different spaces. You know, our staff began the year with professional development. They deepened their knowledge and skills, and are grateful for ongoing learning opportunities to become more efficient to help our students. As always, I'm inspired to learn alongside them and be prepared for the arrival of our students. This summer, we had so much activity going on. We had a great deal of activity inside and outside the classrooms. Many of you will notice that we still have a roofing project going on. And we installed new floors in many areas of the building. We had camps here throughout the summer. So a big thank you goes out to Dan Clark, who was somewhere here before. I think he's over there. Dan Clark, David Reyes, and all of our crew for getting the building ready, because it really looks amazing, and to be able to do that with all the work we had going on was no small feat. Also, a special thank you to our administrative assistants, who worked diligently and tirelessly to get our school ready for everyone's return. In addition to the above-mentioned work, Tiger Man and his crew worked hard for us. We've created some outdoor spaces in the back, and they're going to be wonderful for our kids during the lunch block, but also for classrooms as well into the future. And our first week marked an opportunity to get to know the students, build relationships, and provide a smooth transition back to the school. Students were genuinely excited to be back together. As I said before, it's been a year since we started the end of the year we were together, but really the beginning of the year last year was a totally different experience for us. We didn't know what to expect. So to have them back, have some of their things they do every year, like wearing the senior T-shirts, I think that's really an awesome thing that the kids were able to get back together. Administrators have been busy visiting classrooms, and students are engaging with their teachers and each other. The staff always creates a loving and nurturing and caring environment that welcomes all learners. We're building off the struggles of the pandemic to create kind of a new normal and a better normal for us. New Canaan High School is fortunate to have the finest educators and support staff, and I consider myself lucky to call them colleagues and friends. As many of you know, we transitioned a couple years ago to a block schedule. And this year we made it a fully rotating block schedule with 85 minutes for each block. You know, the block allows for greater depth into each subject and provides a safer learning environment by allowing for less transition times in the hallways. Teachers will continue with outdoor mask breaks, obviously if the weather permits, and the longer time blocks enable students and upperclassmen to leave campus with parental permission and spend their free or study hall periods at home and return for the start of the next class. We've added freshman study halls this year. That was a new thing that people had asked about for years here. And particularly in the middle of the day, they still have an opportunity for a leave-in or a sleep-in or a leave early. And during study halls, freshmen will have an opportunity to participate in some learning modules that will help the transition to the high school. We also added RAM time, which I talked to you about the last time I was here, giving kids an opportunity to get support and get started on their work. Our school hours remain the same for now, from 7:30 to 2:05. And we're happy to welcome 9 full-time staff members to our high school. As with any new position, I'm sure they're nervous and excited about starting in a new environment, but feel welcomed and supported by their colleagues. The transitioning went well, and they're building relationships with students and staff. This year, we welcomed back 1,290 students to the building. And I'd be truly remiss if I didn't thank our parent organization. Our parents are truly the most dedicated and driven parents. I'll never forget the story, really my first year when I came here. Dr. Lutzy talked to me and said, you know, Bill, when you speak to the parents, just be prepared. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, if you've been somewhere else, you know, how many people come to a parent meeting? I'm like, hey, you know, at the most you get 15, 20. He's like, well, it's not going to be like that. So the first time I walked in, you get 150 people, you know, right in front of you, you know, ready to hear every word you have to say. And, you know, but truly it's a testament to this community and the families, because they are here to make sure that their kids are prepared and can be as supported as possible. And they treat us, the staff, that way as well, making sure that we are supported. So basically they are greatly appreciated, and I'm lucky to work with them, any parents that are so invested in their children's education. Finally, a special shout out to the central office team and their staff. We are a lucky group of administrators to work with people who are so incredible, gifted, and talented in trying to make sure that we could get everything successful last year, but also this year as well. And a special thank you to you, the Board of Education. You challenge us to be the best we can be, and hopefully we give back on that as well. So a special thank you to all of you, and you know, I do have a few pictures from the year. You know, this was our ambassadors were kind of greeting kids and getting ready for their role. We had some kids, as we got back in the building, working in the library in different spaces. We had science labs going up and early in the first week. And then we had our class meetings. We decided to do them in different formats. Instead of being inside, we wanted to get outside with them. So sophomore class meeting, we were on the bleachers. The junior class meeting, we were on the track area. And then, you know, the seniors, we were also in the bleachers. You know, but honestly, there was no better time than when students come back to the building, and I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be a part of their lives. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Egan. Any comments, questions?
We can save them to the end.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Even
Great.
better.
Great, thanks, Bill.
See you guys.
Mr. Gusich, as you know, Mr. Gusich is our Sachs Middle School principal. Upper and lower division.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. Good evening and greetings, members of the Board of Education, Central Office leadership, those in attendance and those tuning in live or watching later. It is an honor and a pleasure to stand before you and speak on behalf of Sachs Middle School. I want to thank all of those who had the building ready to open up this year, physically and logistically. It looked amazing and absolutely was ready to welcome back our approximately 1,340 students, almost 200 staff members, and approximately 15 of those being new, both certified and non-certified staff. This includes the custodial and maintenance staff, our secretaries, our tech team, our administrative team, and of course our teachers, faculty, and staff. With the help of our wonderful PTC, we were able to welcome everybody back in spirited style. They're always supportive of us in terms of our welcoming back events, making sure that we have it in style with some good signage and some good music, and keeping it upbeat and making sure that everybody who's in attendance feels welcome and warm there. They're also instrumental in our ongoing evolution through grants, our Celebrate Sacs campaign, and probably about 100 other capacities that I can go on and speak about. But in the interest of time, we'll move on. It goes without saying that our launch to this school year was certainly not typical. It felt good to be a little bit more normal than last year, but to be honest, it went almost as planned, and I was very proud of how well everybody did, most importantly our students. However, there are many aspects that we maintain a laser focus on, and I want to make sure that we do focus on, in addition to upholding the highest level of academic excellence, we'll continue to focus on educating the whole child. And that's going to be in a well-rounded experience. As you're well aware, during this critical time in middle school, their ever-changing developmental phase, where we like to affectionately, I've used this expression before, like to refer to them as being under construction. And we couldn't be more proud to be the foremen and forewomen on that construction site. In terms of what is consistent at Sacs Middle School, our 5 C's celebrating our community through caring, communication, and commitment. Sharing out through our Sacs Weekly, through social media, and back this year is going to be our Sacs News launching again, so look forward to some of those videos. Following up on our focus last year in terms of community as was our priority of our 5 C's, we're going to be focusing on caring this year. And this all starts with the relationships. We wanted to make sure that our students came back, felt warm and welcome, and that's going to be something that we'll focus on throughout the course of this year. We had grade level meetings last week. Right out of the gate when we came back, we thought that was important to make sure we got that consistent messaging out to all of our students and staff for that matter, to reinforce why this is important to every single member of our learning community and how it ties in with our ongoing EI work. In terms of events, and we'll see a couple pictures of these as I wrap up with the slides, but we had our outdoor meet and greet and our New to New Canaan, which, if you remember that little hot streak a couple weeks ago, it was, everybody was brave to come out, but it was great to see everybody there and celebrating the launch of the school year. And of course, we'll have some upcoming virtual and in-person events. Our physical plant. Projects around the building. We got some fresh coats of paint around the building where it's really starting to bring a little bit of that spirit out. There's a great solar project. If you drive drive up or down South Ave, you'll see over the cafeteria. For those that are interested in the inner workings, the boilers were replaced and ventilation and signage, and it really has been, there's a lot of work that's coming together in helping Sacs be as great as it can be, and returning to most of our rooms in the building that were offline last year, and the building is looking great. So big shout out to Dan Clark and Jimmy O'Hara and their teams, and thank you to Joanne Keating for the ongoing support, making sure that this continues moving forward. In terms of what has evolved, we're continuing to expand our outdoor learning opportunities, and again, thanks to our PTC on that. We spoke about that recently, and look forward to sharing more about that in the near future. Our executive function and technology boot camps to help students plan and organize and process across all grade levels has been underway and going really well. Our connections lessons, again, to focus on our emotional intelligence work, and then our opportunities to build and foster community in formats such as our grade level meetings that I mentioned, bringing back some of our town hall meeting formats and allowing students to have some voice and choice in their school day. Overall, our focus is to continue to develop kind, well-rounded young people, and there's no higher compliment to hear a student and or parent report that they're enjoying their experience at Sacs. Fortunately, this occurred several times as we got underway, and I'm just going to share a few of them with you. Our counselors got some feedback from some families. I'm just going to read a couple quick ones. They were very happy after their first day in an American school. They found everything and got the help when it was needed. Thank you. My child came home grinning from ear to ear and said it was awesome. She had a great first day. She said, it wasn't nearly as scary as I thought. I never should have been so nervous. Her buddy was great and everybody was very friendly. So to hear that coming and speaking about a middle school experience really speaks volumes to the work and dedication that goes into making this experience as positive as possible for all of our students. Most of all, it's worth noting that our community felt safe upon their return, and this is true for staff, students, and families, and this has been the driving force from day one as we've navigated this challenge, and we're fortunate to have Dr. Lutzy and the central office administrative team leading this charge. They always collectively have priorities straight and lead with what is most important, with students at the front and center, so thank you. It was amazing to see our building come back to life in the last couple of weeks, and it's starting to feel like a school again, as it should. It really is special, and look forward to sharing a little bit about that. Last but not least, I want to thank all of you on the Board of Education and the community for your continued support. Your Sachs Middle School team looks forward to working together to make the 2021-22 school year the best one yet. So without further ado, I'll go through a couple of pictures. Here's a shot from the field from the 5th grade Meet the Teacher. It was a great event where people came out and had an opportunity to at least have a friendly face and have an opportunity to chat before we welcomed our newest students into the building. The New to New Canaan turnout was tremendous. It was wonderful to see the families come out and want to hear about the school, and students got to do a quick tour in the building and feel comfortable coming into the building. Worth noting, we do recognize that we have many families who have never had the opportunity to step foot in the building, so we're working on coordinating some tours in the coming weeks to be able to allow some families to do that outside of school hours, and hopefully be able to answer that call where people have asked about that. Our welcome back, again, just some excited students coming into and heading out of the building. On the way out, or even waving back, they see a picture. It's great to see them still excited. Our grade level meetings, here's just a quick shot of each of our grade 5, 6, 7, and 8 meetings. And, it was wonderful to be able to get our grade levels together, all together, and send that consistent message with the grade level administrators at the respective levels. And again, our focus for this year, caring for ourselves, for each other, for our school, for our community, and we want all of our students in our communities to know that we care about them. And the wordle there is from What is Our Hope? We shared with our students, with our staff, and with our parents. And it was great to see the responses as we came back collectively, the focus on students getting back to some normalcy, that they are really excited to be back in school, and we're looking forward to really supporting what they were hoping for this school year. A couple shots of some of the outdoor learning experiences in some of our courtyards, and some of the surrounding areas on our campus, as well as right outside. And again, just our students in action here as we made the rounds last week. And finally, we will continue to celebrate our learning community. And again, I want to thank each of you for your continued support and allowing us to provide those rich quality experiences for every single one of our students. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Gussett.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. We never know what order to have our elementaries go in, so we typically default to alphabetical. So Chris, over at East School.
Good evening. I too appreciate the opportunity to share with you the happenings from East School in our opening. I do not have slides this evening, but I would instead encourage you all to follow us at eSchool_NC, all lowercase. We do have an Instagram page that we've started. I don't know if it's called a page or an account. But we are posting photos there. We have lots posted from last week. We're using this as a way to just let families feel connected to the daily happenings in our building and be able to see the real vibrant work that's underway in the building. So I encourage you to follow us. We've had a wonderful back to school week at East this past week. Very excited for the school year ahead. The excitement actually began even before the first day, when we hosted 35 new to East students in just grades 1 through 4 to the building, and we hosted tours for them and their families. We also had a kindergarten play event where all of our new incoming kindergartners came to play on the kindergarten playground with their families. They were able to connect with each other. Families were able to connect. We were thrilled to be able to hold our welcome back ice cream social. It was actually Kona ice rather than ice cream. But it was an ice cream social out on our fields and on the playground on the Sunday before school started. And that has been a tradition at East for many years, thanks to our PTC. We were not able to hold it last year to have everyone back on the grounds, spread out, but with a DJ, with our East School Eagle mascot. It really was invigorating to have that event be able to be happening again as we started the school year. We had outdoor meet and greets for our students to meet their teachers before the first day of school. We were able to also have in-person professional learning days for our staff. It gave them the opportunity to really begin to think about both curriculum and their students. You need both for really powerful teaching to happen. And they had that time together to have collaborative conversations with our curriculum specialists, our curriculum coordinators. So all of that really positioned us to be well prepared to welcome 525 students on August 30th to East. This included 103 new kindergartners. They were very excited to meet their teachers on that first day in an outdoor meet and greet as well, and it supported their transition into the year. And we have 28 sections this year at East School across the kindergarten through fourth grades. 5 sections in kindergarten, 5 sections in fourth, sort of as bookends to the building, and then we have 6 sections at first, second, and third grade. We have been busier than ever, I would say, in the building the past week plus here, because we now are moving throughout the building again. So we have all of our lunch shifts happening in our galley. That's what we call our cafeteria. We have our specials being held back in those special area classrooms, the art room, the music room, the science room. The Library Media Center is open and available as students are coming in their classes, both for technology and for books, and enjoying that part of our building as well. Our PTC has been hosting some tours after school over the past week and continuing this week to families that are new to East, both last year as well as this year, and we've really opened it up to any family that hasn't been able to be in our building and see the wonderful facility that we have and have that opportunity. After school hours, but led by our PTC executive board, giving them a tour of the building so that they can see these wonderful spaces that we have for learning. Already our classes are drafting their classroom charters. That's one of the tools in our emotional intelligence work that we do in our buildings. It's a way for students to think about how they want to feel in the classroom and think about the actions that they're going to do and be a part of in the classroom that are going to help everyone feel that way over the course of the year. They're enjoying new books in their book bins and independent reading. They're solving math problems. They're honing those observation skills in science already. They've been learning about Seesaw, continuing with Google Classroom. Those are some of those platforms and technology that we had used in remote learning, but our teachers are leveraging now in in-person learning as well for instructional, as an instructional tool, as it can be in the classroom as well. Just to share one anecdote from the past week, I was walking on Thursday with a second grader at dismissal, and she remarked to me, "I can't believe I am so tired. I haven't even taken any tests yet." And we talked some more as we were walking to the dismissal area. And in the course of our conversation, what she concluded is that there are many ways that she was already working hard and growing that might never be on a test. She's making new friends. She's learning new routines. She's seeing parts of the building that maybe she hadn't seen in quite a long time since she was a kindergartner. She's meeting new adults. She's getting to know new adults in the building. And all of that is really important work for a young child. It's exhausting work at times, but it's important work. And that's what our students have been doing in this first week of school. They're getting started with those academics, but they're also building those connections in the building that are going to allow them to be available for learning throughout the year. And we thank our staff for supporting all of that in the building. Looking ahead, we have virtual open houses planned over these next couple of weeks to share with families more about our curriculum, the programs in our buildings. We have upcoming PTC events in the fall. Our Wheels and Reels outdoor movie night was something that we started last year. We want to hold on to that. There are events that we developed in the past year that proved to be really successful. They were innovative at the time, and we want to keep them going because they are bringing our community together. We are continuing to use our tents as outdoor learning areas, and we are looking to expand that. So you'll hear more this year as the year moves on about how we're hoping to redesign our courtyard into an outdoor learning space, an outdoor learning center. And again, that's thanks to our PTC. We also have some thank yous that I do want to share. Thank you to our staff, the East School teachers, the staff there. That includes our teaching assistants and interns who really work behind the scenes to get the year started for all of us smoothly. Our secretaries in the office, our custodians, Dan Clark, Scott Olson, they have worked tirelessly throughout the summer, and our building looks great. We also have our cafeteria staff. They're working hard now as we have full shifts going through that cafeteria line each day. Our school nurse, Liz Buckner, has been really an unsung hero for the past several years, not just taking care of our students and staff, but also communicating with families. Thanks again to our PTC, taking care of our staff, keeping us feeling appreciated, but also bringing our families together to keep us all feeling connected. Thank you to Dr. Letzi, our cabinet members for their guidance, and thank you to the Board of Education for your support. Finally, thank you to our students. Their energy, their curiosity, their love for learning is really what makes the opening of schools so wonderful and powerful. And to their families for the trust that they have in us, their flexibility, and their cooperation. We know with all of that, we are going to have a wonderful year. So, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Wallach.
Thanks, Chris. We'll move right to South School with Mr. Kaskak, who is now entering his second year as our South School principal.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to report on South School's very successful school opening this year. Our year began, very much like Chris said, on the 25th, Convocation Day, when we conducted in-person outdoor meet and greet events for our students in grades 1 through 4. Classroom teachers met their students and parents directly outside their classrooms, which allowed students and parents to get a view of the classroom through the windows. The 30-minute event was very well attended, and feedback from the parents and the students included many comments of gratitude for being able to meet the teachers in person rather than virtually this year. Families who were new to South and all of our kindergartners were invited to enjoy popsicle playdate sessions sponsored by the PTC on Thursday the 26th, which was probably the hottest day of the year, so the popsicles had to be eaten very quickly. But these sessions were very well attended and appreciated. And on Monday, August 30th, we welcomed our 77 new kindergartners and their parents to an outdoor meet and greet session that mirrored the grade 1 through 4 session on the 25th. Overall, we welcomed 523 students in grades K through 4. Our enrollment's broken down as follows: 77 kindergartners in 4 classes, 92 first graders in 5 classes, 127 second graders in 7 classes, only the second time in my 23 years here that we've had 7 classes, 105 third graders in 6 classes, and 121 fourth graders in 6 classes. We added 2 sections a little late in the summer on August 9th, a third grade and a second grade, which caused a little bit of scrambling and some room changes at the last minute. But thanks to our custodial staff and the facility staff, we were able to make those changes work in relatively little time and get everybody up and running before the meet and greets. We are like East now at 28 sections, which is 1 more section than last year and 2 more than we had expected when we closed school in June. Not counting our 77 kindergartners, we welcomed 50 new students to South this year from 41 families in grades 1 through 4. This is the highest number of new students I can recall in my 18 years at South. We also welcomed several new staff members, including 2 new classroom teachers, a new special education resource teacher, a new teaching assistant, and 3 new graduate interns. Our custodial staff, as I said, with the support of facilities, did a wonderful job as always, preparing the school to sparkle and shine for our opening. The grounds at the front of the school looked wonderful, thanks once again to the Mazabras family, former South Schoolers who own a landscaping company and who have for years donated the labor and materials needed to weed and mulch the gardens and prune and trim all the plantings. Also, the McPartland family, who are current South Schoolers, provided beautiful flower arrangements for all of our planters at the front of the school. South was also the fortunate recipient of a new information kiosk, including an enclosed information board with updated garden info, and a rain barrel system that collects water off the roof of this kiosk for the garden. This was a gift provided through the efforts of a New Canaan High School student and Boy Scout, Andy Liang, who completed the work for his Eagle Scout project over the summer with the help of other scouts and scout leaders. Many of our students and parents also worked hard during the summer, volunteering many hours to maintain the garden, which was planted by students last spring. And we look forward to upcoming harvesting activities, which we will integrate into lessons in the classroom with the students, and to donating the fruits of the South School community's labor to the New Canaan Food Pantry. Our PTC continues to be an integral partner as we complete our work of providing our students with the very best possible educational experiences, and our families and staff with a school community that is supportive, engaging, and interactive. In addition to the South Popsicle dates mentioned earlier, we worked with the PTC to provide parents from both last year, who never got to see the inside of the school, and this year to sign up for tours of the school after school hours last week, Tuesday through Friday. About 60 families took advantage of these tours. We're grateful for our PTC volunteers for the time and effort they put into this community building effort. As we look to the future, we are working creatively with the PTC to continue some of our cherished South traditions, while considering new programs and projects, as Mrs. Wallach referred to. We also have an upcoming movie night, which was a big hit last year, that will meet the requirements of any pandemic mitigation strategies that continue to be necessary. Teachers have hit the ground running with instruction and are very grateful that we have very little in the way of remote instruction this year. But as Chris said earlier, they're also working with the platforms that we brought in, the technology platforms, Seesaw and Google Classroom, to prepare just in case students have to quarantine or isolate, or if we have to, for some reason, go to remote. Most importantly, however, our students appear to be very excited to be back in school with their peers and teachers. Classroom visits have revealed that students have not skipped a beat and getting right back into their expected routines. Some have just really been excited about the fact that we have returned to outdoor morning recess and social time as they arrive at school. Specials are back in their classes, as Ms. Wallach referred to earlier. And we continue to use the outdoor learning spaces that we have as often as we can so that students can have mask breaks. The children really are excited about being back in school, and so are all of the adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaskek.
Thanks, Matt. And fifth, we have Miss Murphy, our principal over at West School.
And good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having all of us here tonight. I'd like to just start the way I usually start and just say thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be the principal at West School, to be able to work with the amazing kids that we have in New Canaan. So thank you for allowing us to be here. Every year since I've been at West, we've picked or selected a book sort of as a focus for our year. And this year, the book that we've chosen is a book by Peter Reynolds, one of my favorite authors, and it's called Be You. And it really is about continuing our work that we did last year about students and how they're different and really connecting with students. So this year, we want to take that a little step further and talk about kids and how they were born to be so many things, but the most important thing is for them to just be themselves and to be you. So we're going to be focusing on this book this year. It'll be part of our Proud to Read Aloud that we do with our parents, and our focus will really be around connections and really making strong connections with kids based on who they are and, you know, building their identity that way. So I'm very happy to report that we have 408 students K through 4 at West this year. We have 42 pre-K students with 4 sections of pre-K. Our enrollment sections stay the same, although they shifted. We stayed with 4 sections of 74 students in kindergarten. We are at 5 sections with 86 students in grade 1. Grade 2 went up an extra section. We had a big increase in enrollment there with 87 students. Grade 3 stayed the same at 4 sections with 79 students, and then 4th grade went down a section to 81 students, and they're at 4 sections. So we remained the same over the year to year, but our sections fluctuated from each grade level. We were happy to be able to hire a new grade 2 teacher this year and a new part-time school psychologist. We also have the pleasure of working with 3 interns who will be doing their student teaching at West School, as well as 2 they're not actually student teachers, or interns, working with our speech and language pathologists. So we're enthusiastic to learn as much from them as they will learn from us. So last year, our theme at West was really everything was the same but different. And this year, we're kind of shifting a little bit to more of the same but a little bit different. So things that have been more of the same is this year we brought back our early bird program in the morning. That's a program available for working parents who need childcare before our start of school. All of our students are now eating in the lunchroom. They're attending specials, as you heard both Chris and Matt speak about. They're allowed to have more recess equipment during recess. And probably the best part of West this year is that we have been able to fully open our outdoor learning center, thanks to the generosity of our PTC. And I want to publicly thank both Megan Gould and Lauren Erickson for all their hard work this summer. Not a day went by that they weren't asking or working on that outdoor learning center. So it's up and running. It's about 95% complete. Classes are out there working and learning. It's amazing to see. And at some point in time, I'd love to be able to come back and show you some pictures or invite you to come over and see it for yourself. It's an amazing, amazing place. So some of the things that at the end of the year, as we reflected last year, we asked teachers, what were some of the unintended outcomes from this whole school year, because it was so different. And one of the things that came up was, the value of having those outdoor spaces. So we do also have spaces assigned to each classroom teacher so that they can give students regular mask breaks, and kids can go outside and read, and those spaces are also being used in addition to the outdoor learning space. So our school year, for me, started with our administrative retreat. Brian had us up in Bethel, and we read a book called Think Again, and we were inspired to create a welcome back video for our staff, and both Ashley and I worked hard to do that, and so we got a few chuckles from our staff the first day of school, the first day back. We welcomed our new teachers on August 19th into our buildings, and we sort of gave them a personalized teacher orientation for West School. The one thing that has been a little bit different this year is the number of in-person events that we've been able to have. So this year we welcomed 44 new students to West. It was in person. Our student leadership group, our kids care group, led tours with Mrs. Fernari, and I modeled a morning meeting circle with parents where they actually talked to one another and talked about where they were from and, how many kids they had in school. And we had families as far away from Germany who had arrived 2 days prior to the event and as close as Norwalk. So it was kind of a nice way for them to get to know each other, too, outside in the front playground. And we also, thank you to the PTC, were able to host our kindergarten bike rodeo, which we typically had in the spring, but we did it this year before school started. So our kindergarten students and their families were able to come and interact on the back playground. And we also hosted several play dates. One students got their classroom teacher assignments. Each of the classes had a date and a time to come to the front playground to get used to the playground and to get to know some of the kids in their classrooms. Our convocation this year was in person at Dunning Stadium. We had our professional learning on the 25th. Our faculty we had lunch. We did a meet and greet. That was in person. Parents were outside. We had a very, very high representation of students and families that day. It was great to be able to meet the kids in person. Followed by a faculty lunch and a meeting. The faculty learned a lot about the students' social, academic, and emotional needs that afternoon, speaking with former teachers or school psychologists, special area teachers, and so on. Our staff participated in the professional learning on the 26th. We did catch up with some of our EI work. Dr. Bliss did a presentation about trauma and children. Curriculum coordinators presented professional learning in social studies, math, reading, and writing. And then on the 27th, we had our entire faculty together again in what we call the BBT, the Brown Bag Theater, for the first time in a long time, and it felt really good. Everybody was masked, we were socially distant, and we were able to really look at our West School charter. We all agreed that we wanted to add the word safe to our charter, because every day we come to school, we want to be able to feel safe. So faculty worked in grade level teams and department teams, and they developed their specific plans for teaching lessons that promote our emotional intelligence work. They'll be developing classroom charters and revisiting the mood meter, and really outlined a timeline for the year of when those lessons will be taught. We continue to use our morning meeting to implement some of the ruler tools that we are teaching students for emotional intelligence. And we basically spent the rest of the afternoon working and collaborating, getting to know, making those connections, and getting to know our students a little bit better. On the second day of school, Tuesday, August 31st, we held our kindergarten meet and greet. We had all 4 sections and all 4 grade levels in the front, on the playground, on the circle, in person, which was great. And I think the parents got to meet the teachers, the students got to meet some of the peers in their classrooms, and overall, it was a great day for everybody. We have buildings and grounds update. We did finish the solar panels project, so if you come up and look, all of our building 3 is where the solar panels are housed. And then they did remove the underground oil tank this summer from the front playground, and so now it's external on the front playground. And I'd like to say thank you publicly to Joanne Keating, Dan Clark, Scott Olson, our head custodian Juan Ochoa, and for all the work they did this summer. It was a lot to coordinate and put together. So coming up, we actually had our first fire drill on Friday. It was great. It took a little bit longer for us to get out, but it was great. It was a beautiful day. We have our first lockdown scheduled. We have our PTC Fall Family Fun Night, which is always an exciting night, on September 24th at 5 o'clock in the back of our school playground. Picture Day is coming up in October. And our virtual open houses are being held on Thursday, September 23rd for kindergarten, first and second grade, and then Tuesday, September 28th for grades 3 and 4. Like you heard Matt and Chris say, we are also, and actually the high school and the middle school, we are also hosting tours for our new families. Thank you again to our PTC for organizing. I think the email went out and it was filled. All of the slots were filled within minutes. So it was very popular, and I'm glad that we're doing it. So we had our first one today, well attended. They got to come in and see the school. Some of them were so impressed. They had never ever envisioned what the inside of the school looked like. So I thought it was a great opportunity for them. I'd also just like to take a moment to say thank you to my assistant principal, Ashley Fernari, who worked very hard this summer to put together schedules and all of our dismissal procedures and things like that. Our central office team for always being there. Whenever we call and pick up the phone, you're always there. And Michelle Santelli, we had a little bit of a blip this week, and she jumped right in and helped us out with some school lunches. So she did a great job. And probably last but not least by any means, again, I want to just thank the PTC presidents, Lauren Erickson and Megan Gould, for all of their hard work. They're a great communicator with us. They let us know about things that maybe we need to be better about communicating, and they're just great partners. So thanks to both of you. And so that's opening at West School. So thank you for everything.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
So
Go
I
ahead.
just want to say
Yeah.
thank you to our 5 principals and, certainly the teams that they work with every day. You hear their excitement, you see the joy. It's, as you said, a couple of you said, it's the same but different, and we're making adjustments and doing what we have to do along the way. But our kids are really having a wonderful experience this year, as we expected. And, all of that positive energy and joy and excitement, the engagement we see in the schools. There's a quick funny story. On the first day of school, we go around to all the buildings, as you know. We welcome the students and the parents and whatever. We were over at Saks in the lower division, and we started talking to a teacher who said the 6th graders arrived, and he's a 5th grade teacher. When he went to his door, the student was standing right outside of his classroom. And he said, what are you doing here? He said, well, I have chorus first period, and this is where I had chorus last year in your room. So isn't this where I have chorus this year? He said, no, this is my homeroom class. We had all of our specials in homerooms last year. And he took him actually to the choral room where he'd never been before as a 6th grader to show him kind of around the building a bit and whatever. And it's just interesting. We forget sometimes that our 1st graders had never traveled the building before. We assume they know where they're going and how to get there and all that, but that's all new to them because last year we pushed in for all of our specials. The same with our 6th graders over at Saks. So there's some things for us to be reminded of along the way of what gaps might exist for our students as they navigate their way around the building. But I'm sure what are we now, into the 6th day of school, they've got it all figured out. So I know our teachers are excited to use their spaces again and to teach the specials in those well-equipped rooms that are meant for it, and the kids are getting the most out of it. So very exciting. So thank you all for being here with us and for doing what you do every single day. It's exciting.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Go ahead, Jen.
So I'm going to just kind of jump on what Brian said. We are so incredibly grateful to all of you and to the teachers, and I know it's been a rough couple years, but to hear all this exciting stuff that's happening and all the positive energy is so awesome to hear. And it's so great that we're having like ice cream socials again and the tours for the families, which I know is so incredibly important. And I love that we're doing that executive functioning boot camp. I mean, when I came on the board initially, I remember talking about this, and it's so incredibly important. So I'm so psyched about that. And even the freshman study hall is such a great thing. So much great stuff happening, and we are just so grateful to everyone and the teachers and everybody. And you know, it's going to be a great year. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I would just echo all the comments that have been made, and I would add one that, you know, word on the street is there's a lot of excitement about lunch freedom again. So I think that's what I heard about the first day of school. So thank you. And thanks for all your hard work this summer. I know it was a major feat, and you know, it all continues. So thank you. All
And
right.
in that spirit, I'm going to invite our principals to head out. You have early mornings tomorrow morning, and lots to do, I'm sure. So you're welcome to stay, but certainly no expectation or obligation. So thank you. And they never hesitate when they make that. That's coming, don't worry.
Yeah. All right. So our next report is a capital update with Mr. Dan Clark.
This one, right? Yes, sir. I have a Commodore 64 at home, so I just had to double check. Good evening, everyone. And like our speakers before me, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I can tell you that I'll probably get a text later on. It's not unusual just to talk about devotion, whether it be nights or weekend. If any of the principals have an idea or a need, it's no problem at all sending a text. And so it's a 24/7 job, as you know, as you can imagine. So it's just a pleasure to work for a group of professionals like I do. So our capital update, and there's a little bit of operational information in the slides tonight as well. So facilities, capital, and maintenance projects. So obviously the most important thing for us to do over the course of the summer and year-round really is make the school ready for school the next day. And so that, in this case, it also makes sure that we look at all the ventilation systems, that they're operating properly. There's plenty of ventilation in and out of all the classrooms and all the spaces throughout the school. Floors are marked just for the 6-foot, 3-foot distances. And the sanitation and disinfection, again, that continues throughout the course of the summer, getting the schools ready, the touch points, the bathrooms, cafeteria, and so forth. Scrubbing the floors, waxing the floors, and of course, all rooms cleaned throughout the whole facility. On the maintenance side of that, the facilities people, they go through the HVAC systems, the rooftop units, the classroom units, wherever we have throughout all 5 schools. We test them out to make sure they're operating as specified, they're cleaned, and filter changes so that they're all ready for full operation when school starts. And then we also go and test our emergency management systems, our safety systems, for example, the fire alarm, our sprinkler systems, emergency generators, kitchen equipment, and so forth. So all the front of the house is clean and safe, and the back of the house is ready for another school year. So that's really a quick look at the maintenance. On the capital projects, the next page is the high school roof replacement has gone very well. We actually debated when we were first putting the plans together to split this up into 2 years. And there's pros and cons, but we elected to go for replacing the entire roof during 1 year. And unfortunately, we picked the summer where we lost 17 days because of the rain. So, but we did have a contingency plan, and that really has been implemented, that we would finish up the last month or so of the high school in the over areas. So, for example, the auditorium is one, the kitchen was another, the boiler rooms and so forth. And I have a little picture that shows you exactly where we are during the process and how we track the project. So besides the roof replacement here at the high school, we did a lot of floor replacement. Bill talked about it a little bit, in areas where over time the rugs were just kind of matted down and need to be replaced. So we did quite a few rooms in the building for that. And we replaced it with LVT, the vinyl, which is really the choice of what the teachers would like as well. It's become our standard. If we're removing carpeting, we're going to replace with the LVT. Other projects we're working on, a lot of safety and energy conservation projects. Phase 1 of the parking lot poles, gym lights, and exterior lights at the high school and Saks, they've all been completed with LEDs. As a matter of fact, our in-house electricians did that work. So we had good quality, and we saved on the installation. And we purchased the equipment directly from the manufacturers. There is a phase 2, which we're in the process right now of getting all the documents signed away and making sure that everything's ordered. And that's going to be taking care of all the LED lights. It's going to replace all the existing lighting with LED lights in the high school and in Saks. We've already done the elementary school a couple of years back. So that's in progress. As Jan said, we finished the installation of I'm sorry, that's the wrong one, but as Dave said, the Saks PV solar system. And it is kind of neat when you drive south on South Avenue to be able to look up and you see the solar panels mounted up on the school. It's a good feeling. We also replaced, as Dave said, one of the boilers, and we have the other two, there's 3 altogether. We did one at first to get it done, and then the other 2 are in the process of being completed now. We also are in design phase of a new CHP, combined heat and power unit, where the natural gas feeds a generator, and we're creating our own electricity on site, which is much less expensive than it is to buy it from Eversource. So that's in the design process right now for Saks. Saks boilers, as I mentioned. West School PV solar system, as Jan said, that's online. Incidentally, over the next week or so, the IT department are putting we have screens on an app for each of the schools that has the PV solar system. So when you walk into the main lobby at South School or East School, and shortly thereafter it'll be West School, there'll be a kiosk there where you'll be able to see what the operation of the solars is producing at that point. And maybe in the future I can present a report on how that's going so far, just in terms of what the power is being produced and what kind of funding we're saving. Also, West School, we had some flooring replacement projects in the classrooms, and we're also working on replacing one of the air conditioning chillers. Probably will be a spring of next year project. And as Jan mentioned, last year you heard me talk about how we shut down and cleaned out and abandoned the oil tank at West, and this year we pulled it out of the ground. So we do have a convol tank, a temporary tank that will burn oil over the course of the year. We did go out to bid for propane to replace the oil, since we know that we're not going to have natural gas piped up to that area, the West School, not to that side of town. So we did get a couple of quotes on the project to put propane in, but we just don't have the funding. So we're going to restart that and try that again next spring probably. Go out to bid again to see what the market is bearing for that. Painting, every year we meet with the principals and we go over areas that they have for painting with our observations and what their observations are. We have blueprints that we're keeping track, so we know over time what areas and when we did the painting. So we completed all the painting that we had planned for this year. We also have a South School and East School to change the public address system upgrade. We're just waiting for the material to come in. South School boiler replacement. That's also something on the capital budget that we've been forecasting to do. It's up this year. And so we're just started the design process. That would be also a springtime project. We had to repair the gym floor. There was some water damage to that, but we were able to get that repaired and polished up for the opening of school. And also working with the town for the paving. We have paving requirements in South School, West School, East, and the high school. And we're in progress trying to match up the schedules so that we can get that work done. So here's a picture of the high school. If you look at the bottom of the south, just to kind of orient you, that's where the main gym is. So you can see yellow highlighting means that is completed in terms of the roof. And as you go up towards the auditorium, you can see that there's some red lines, and that's really right outside the door where we are. That's how far we made it up. The red lines were just finished today. That's the hallway right outside the Wagner room and the restrooms and the classroom. So we'll be finishing up that area. And the top right corner, it's roof 25, right next to the red dots. And then we're going to be going up all the way to the top. That's where the music and art classrooms are. And we'll finish up over the auditorium. So we estimate that's probably going to be another 3 weeks to 4 weeks before we do it, because that's a lot of the older roof, and that's a bit more difficult, and you have to take your time to be able to work on it. And we have been working with the administration to make sure that we're not working over any area where there's people below. And so we schedule the time, and some rooms have been relocated to allow the roofers to finish up. As I said, it was a decision we made to go with it, getting it completed in 1 year, and I think it's, we're 3 or 4 weeks from finishing up, and it definitely was a good decision to do that. So I took some pictures. You can see this is sections of the new roof. And when we say replace the roof, we're actually have 28 roof surfaces up there, and you can see there's 3 or 4 different roofs are up there, and you have to treat them all separate instead of one big flat piece of rubber to put over there, making it much easier. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. There's 28. So we have 23 completed, and we have 5 more to go. But that's a pretty good idea of what the finish looks like. And that is, you can probably recognize your high school parent. On the right side is the courtyard leading into the cafeteria, just to orient you where that is. Here's a picture of West School with the PV system out back. You can see the PV up on top of the roof. And then here's a shot of the front of the building where you can see the PV on top of the gym. And in the lower right-hand corner, there's where all the mechanical equipment is. That's going to be fenced off, but that, as Jan said, it's running right now. Here's our first boiler that was replaced at Saks, this condensing boiler. They're highly efficient, state-of-the-art equipment. We not only just in terms of saving costs just to operate it, but also they'll last for a long, long time. And the other 2 are sitting right by side. You can see them up there. We're still in the process of piping them in, getting them installed. They'll be ready for the heating season. Just right above there, 2 stories. Here's the Sac School PV solar. So we've talked about that a little bit. Here's a couple of pictures to show you the high school flooring. This is in one of the computer labs in the lower division. This is the main office. We also did guidance area, some of the different language art offices, and some classrooms as well. Our high school and Saks high efficiency lighting, as I mentioned, we did this work in-house, all the exterior in all 5 schools. But also at the bottom is new LED lighting in the high school gymnasium. It's all motion controlled, so in the beginning of the day as you walk into and this will really be for any large area, as you walk in, the lights see you. Each fixture has a sensor, so it picks you up and just turns on the light that you're occupying in that area. So if somebody needs to go in just to get equipment, they can grab it and leave without turning the whole lights on for a long period of time. So that's a highlight of the work that we've been doing, we'll continue to do throughout the course of the school year. So if there's any questions, be happy to answer.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. It's wonderful to see all these updates coming out of the budget season, starting to make their way through our schools. Questions, comments? Brendan?
This is great. So thanks for the update. Obviously, a ton of work ongoing. Have we identified through all the different types of projects that we have additional needs for skills internally, or are we, with all the hiring that we've done, the insourcing that we've done, do we have really what we need? Are we doing a lot of outsourcing still? Can you comment on that a little bit?
We do actually have a vacancy right now for an HVAC mechanic, and there are some applicants, not as many as we expected, so I know that that's one of the issues. It's also affecting our contractors that we use too. Fortunately, we have good relationship with our contractors. So right now, we're going to see what is the best. After reflecting on this past year, what would the benefit be to add more staff if we can, target some certain areas and discuss those, and then we'd be able to come up with a better decision, I think.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Penny?
So I just wanted to thank your staff again for their key role in keeping our schools clean and safe for the children all last year, and all the work they did this summer. And to me, looking at all the solar projects and the CHP and that we're doing and all the LED lighting, it's just such a tremendous increase in efficiency across all 5 schools that I want to commend you for it. I'd love at some point to see sort of a summary slide about what you're predicting, I think we had some in last year's budget presentation I could go back and look at, but we're saving the district money through your amazing efforts. And so I just say go on. I don't know what what we can do next, but I'm sure you'll come up with something to make it even more efficient. It'll be solar at the high school, and I know we're going to be looking at this year. But it means a lot. It allows us resources to educate the children, and that's what we're all here about. So bravo.
Thank you. Thank you all for the support.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about what you were just mentioning when we get into the end of the year financial report and the on-bill financing piece. But just to share, as you're saying, Penny, Dan, Joanne, all of us, we really focus as much as we can on managing and controlling those operational costs. It's what it takes to run the building, run the program, so that we can continue to support and maintain our educational costs, our staffing, and keep our staffing levels where they are, and to sort of protect that. In many districts that don't put the same focus on those operational costs, it eats away at their other programs. And we've been really focused on this, and I think highly successful. Now we have solar at 4 of our 5 buildings. We're looking at, as Dan mentioned, the CHP and electricity generation and those things. We've replaced boilers, done other things that all help to manage costs that would otherwise be escalating. And it's really paid off in the long run. So I know 2 or so years ago in our budget presentation, we talked about how the changes we've made in the insurance planning has saved significant dollars through the years. It's probably time to do a similar thing with our budget presentation this year around the energy and some of the other operational costs that we've been really focusing on managing and controlling. And I want to similarly commend Dan, commend Dr. Keating, and all of the staff that really work so hard on thinking about these things and coming up with creative ways to manage these costs that would otherwise escalate to the detriment, I think, of the educational program. So thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Okay, next.
And Dan too has a very early morning, probably earlier than anyone, so.
Thanks, Dan.
Right. Sorry. That's okay. So we'll move on next to our action items. The first is our end-of-year financial report. I'll turn it over to Dr. Keating.
Thank you. Each year I have the pleasure of presenting this report and the displeasure of having to follow great presentations like we had tonight. Every year, this upbeat stuff. But this is a fairly upbeat type of financial report for last year. So this is for the 2021 school year. It is unaudited at this point in time. However, we are reconciled with the town, and we have every reason to believe that this is the report that will be presented in the audited statements for the town. So I'll go section by section, if that's okay. The first section of the report is the general fund. It's our operating budget, where we have most of our funding. It's presented on pages 4 through 8 in the report. And this year is a little different than previous years in that we did receive our appropriation through the normal process in 2020, in the spring of 2020. It was $90,880,629. When we presented that budget report to the towns for approval, we were just at the beginning of COVID, so we really did not have a great sense of what COVID meant budgetarily to us. And so there's variances within the budget that have been created due to that. In addition, the town this past April decided to give us an appropriation for $1,977,000, and that appropriation, while expensed in the current year for health benefits, really was to fund benefits for next year, for 2022. So it's going to be, when you take a look at the statements, keep that in mind, that is really, that expenditure of $1,977,000 really is attributable to 2022. With that said, our appropriation for the year is $92,858,360. Our expenditures for last year are $91,134,167, and that includes the $1,977,000 for the Internal Services Fund. And this year, we do have a larger than normal year-end encumbrance of $383,949. And the reason for that is that there's a number of pieces of equipment that we purchased at year-end. The board had approved several transfers for this equipment that are just back-ordered. We have a lot of items that are back-ordered this year, like the rest of the economy, where it's no different for us. When all is taken into account, we spent 98.6% of our approved budget on a budgetary basis. You have two transfers before you tonight. One of them is for the Internal Services Fund, and that has been our most volatile item this year, aside from COVID. And the other is for equipment that we decided was more cost-effective to purchase rather than repair what we had for our floor cleaning equipment. We will be returning to the town $1,340,243. That's what will remain in our budget after expenditures. And so the town will have the benefit of those funds into their fund balance to work with for the 2023 or 22-23 budget. So three items really contributed to the need for additional funding in the Internal Services Fund. And just as a reminder, the Internal Services Fund pays for all of our health employee benefit transactions. It's not a lapsing account like the operating budget, it's a non-lapsing account. So we're able to fund that account each year and carry forward funds that are remaining to offset the subsequent year. And that's how the fund operates. We plan for this fund based on the town's reserve policy for that fund. And so at the end of the year, each year, what we do is we close out the books for the current year, and we look to our projections for the subsequent year and determine whether or not there is sufficient funding. For each of the last 6 years, there has been. This year, given the activity that has taken place in the fund, we do require additional funding. So it's $411,797. There's funding available within our budget to cover those expenses. And so we're in a position where we're able to actually do a transfer this year and move the funds over this year, meaning the year we're closing out, without having to go to the town for an appropriation. So that's what we're able to do here. And there's three pieces to that. Our expenditures bottom line on a $15+ million budget for the Internal Services Fund were overspent by $110,269, and that's revenues net expenditures. So that's one piece, and to me it was remarkably close. Joe did a remarkable job with that. It could have gone the other way by $100,000, but we were carefully tracking our claims, our high claimants, and our stop-loss insurance throughout the year, right up to the end. and it was very close. But $110,000 is attributed to that. Based on our claims experience at the end of the year and the fact that we've had several significant high claimants, which have exceeded, in the case of a few, over $1 million. And as you recall, our attachment point is anything over $300,000. We purchase stop-loss insurance to mitigate the risk of high claimants, both specifically to a claimant and in the aggregate. And we've had a few over $1 million. So that's a big delta between $300,000 and over $1 million. And we've collected close to $2 million in the fiscal year on our stop-loss. That has presented a challenge for our renewal. Obviously, our premiums were $700,000+. We're collecting $2 million. So when we went to rewrite our insurance, of course, the increase was significant. And we had budgeted for an increase in the stop-loss, but it exceeded that increase by $86,168. So we have to plan to fund that up in our budget for next year. And then finally, the increase in the liability at year end because of the high claimants is $215,360. Fortunately, we do have funds in our salary accounts. At year end, we have money in the certified account of $24,732 and in the non-certified account of $127,879, so there's some funding there. Within the employee benefit account in our operating budget, we had a total of $110,295 from a few different line items. And as you go through the report and you have some time to just look at it, I would encourage you to go to the property services because we did have some very favorable variances in those accounts. And they're mainly attributed to the fact that Dan's department, the maintenance crew, have done so many projects in-house, number one. And number two, over the last several years, we have accomplished so much through our capital budget and through our in-house maintenance that we're really bringing down the overall cost of maintaining our buildings. And our goal is to continue to do that and find ways to continue to improve those services. So we're able to fund the employee benefit account for the ISF through those different accounts. The second transfers for $59,812. We decided to purchase equipment for floor cleaning rather than repair 20-year-old pieces of equipment. They're more effective, they're more efficient, and it just is like you get to a point where it makes a lot of sense to replace rather than to repair. Within the budget, we had $2,968 to offset that, and so we transferred the balance of $59,812, and that came from property services as well. So that is the operating budget, if I may. Last year, we also received 2 special appropriations from the town for COVID. On June 9th, we went to the Board of Finance, and they approved $400,000 for us to start purchasing items needed to open school and mitigate, provide us with mitigation strategies. And then on October 13th, we went back after we had our expenditures outlined and requested another $1,543,000. And they were very open-minded and provided us with those resources. So we had a total of $1,943,091 appropriated in a special non-lapsing fund, again, different from the operating fund, for the use for COVID mitigation strategies. At the time we asked for this appropriation, we really did not have any real news on our grants coming from the federal government. And so subsequent to that, we received 2 grants that were spent in last fiscal year. The first was called Coronavirus Relief Fund, CRF, and the second was called ESSER 1, and we've had subsequent ESSER grants. So we were able to use those funds to mitigate some of the funding requirement here by close to $300,000. Those funds will roll over into this current year, and we'll be able to use those funds for COVID purposes as needed throughout the year. Now, we have received 2 other grants in addition, one being ESSER 2 and the second being ESSER 3, which is a much larger grant. And I believe Jill gave an update on that at the last meeting. So we certainly have plans on how to use that. So at this time, we do not see the need to go back to the town bodies to ask for any additional funding for COVID at this time. Should something happen that is unexpected, we'll have to deal with that at the time. So moving on to federal and state grants, we always plan for these each year because they are part of our planning and our financial plan. They're on pages 10 and 11 of the report. So every year we get 6 federally funded grants that are called entitlement grants. Regardless of your wealth level, you get these grants, and they're based on demographic information. So there's Titles 1, 2, and 3 that are used to support student learning and professional development. Carl Perkins, which is a technology grant, and the IDA grants, we get 2 more significant grants to help with special education needs. And so those are the grants that we receive every year. This past year with COVID, we received 6 additional grants. One of them is the Special Ed COVID grant, which Bill secured for us. And then the ESSER, which stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, came in the form of 1, 2, and 3. And then CRF, which I mentioned. And we also received relief for unemployment claims that came through. So that was all very helpful and will continue to be helpful throughout the year. Because the ESSER funds came later in the year, we did not spend them in full as we normally do. So we do have these grants that are carrying over. $745,000 has been carried over in awards that we know we have. And then what came through this summer is the ESSER 3. So you can, as you go through that, keep that in mind. The non-public grants are administered by the school district, but they're spent by the non-public entities. So sometimes they don't spend all those funds. Those revert back to the federal government, and we have a process for doing that. The next section of the report deals with school lunch program. I was delighted to hear from Wes that they are very excited about getting back there. It's going to help our bottom line quite a bit. The last 2 years have been hard on the program, to be honest with you. Just in 3 months, at the end of the 20 school year, the 1920 school year, we had lost close to $400,000. This past year, even though we were serving every day, because of the mitigation strategies we had to have for safety, our revenues were below projections by quite a bit, as you can see here. And we did end up this school year with a deficit of $457,000. We're going to really need to we're working on that. We have developed a business plan. Our food service program prior to COVID was so robust. It was great. We were turning a profit of close to $250,000. The kids are eating, participation was super high, and it was sad to see it go so low, but we're really hoping, Katrina, if you could put something out on social media, that would be great. The food's good, the food's really good. Moving on to facility rentals, donations in the summer school program. So we really did not rent out our facilities last year due to COVID. We had to be sure that they were safe for our students and staff to return every day. So unlike prior years where we might have had $120,000 in rental revenue coming in, we did not this past year. I think there was 10 or so thousand. Donations continued to be strong despite COVID, close to 500,000, which is just incredible and amazing. So thank you. And just wonderful things taking place in the schools, from the outdoor learning center to gardens to books to materials. It's just been amazing. And we did have our summer program last year, which did attract some of our students. It was not as, the participation was nowhere near as high as it had been in previous years. We ran a deficit. We knew we would because we were having we ran the full program, but with less participation. So we expected that, and it was not overly significant. And then finally, getting into the Internal Services Fund, which I mentioned was our most volatile fund going through the year. I just wanted to point out one thing to you, and it's on page 16 of the report. And this is a rather complex fund and hard to understand for folks, and you see a lot of numbers on this page here. But our goal in our planning is always to leave our budget and leave our projections at what our obligation is at 40% of the 20% aggregate liability. And that protects the board and the board members from any financial obligation of their own, because there's laws around that in the state of Connecticut. 60% of that corridor is maintained in the operating budget on the town side, and we've had many conversations over the last several years, especially this past year, with regards to access to that 60%. And the importance of that is that we don't have insurance until we've satisfied the full amount of the corridor. So I believe the policy is in place that does support our access to those funds. Lunda does have the authority to move those funds if we need them, and I believe the town's finance board is committed to doing that. The reason why we put in the $441,000, whatever that number was, this past fiscal year, is it's important to do that because we wouldn't have covered, should everything on this planning page come to fruition, to cover that corridor. So that's why it was so important that we made the decision to make that transfer for the board. And before I take questions, I would just like to really sincerely thank the Board of Education. We could not have gotten through this year without your leadership, without your guidance, without your support. You've been amazing, and I just thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Keating. I appreciate all of your hard work as well. Questions, Brendan? Go ahead.
Thank you. So first on the, I've got a few here. First on the COVID expenses that we began last year with, so the 1.943 million special appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just remembering that was rolled over from unspent amounts in 2020, right? So it was roughly $2 million the spring of 2020. We had, everything was remote, so we weren't spending money. Yeah, so we basically rolled over those savings into 2021. I just wanted to refresh my and everyone else's recollection. Exactly. And then the last couple, on the insurance claims, I just wanted to echo what you said, which is kind of amazing, frankly, that our, forecast with, with Joe's help was within 1% of what the total claims ended up being, which is just amazing. And we appreciate greatly all of his work and helping us work through this. And then, I think it's great that in this past year, we're able to send roughly $1 million back to the town. But, reflecting on what we just heard from all the principals, there's a lot we're doing this year that we weren't doing last year, which is great. So I wouldn't necessarily expect that, going forward. My hope is that we're going to be able to do everything that we budgeted to do this year. Mm-hmm. And then just one last question, which is on the facilities. Do we have a view yet on whether or not we're going to be able to let people into the buildings for things like basketball and and other things at some point this year, or do we just not know yet?
Sure, we are cautiously optimistic. Right, we're taking some bookings. We're booking out a little bit on some events, with an understanding that if things change and move in the wrong direction, we'd have to stop that. So we're starting on a small scale to try to get that going again, in constant communication with the health department, and with an understanding that the protocols in place in the school building all would need to be followed throughout.
Right.
Whatever the experience is, but little things like team dinners, for instance. Last year we couldn't have any team dinners. Typically we have them in this room, but what we're doing is scheduling them, having them in the cafeteria where they have a lot more space and they can spread out and be a little bit safer that way. So we're modifying them to make them as safe as possible, but doing our best to have them. Yep.
Great. Thank you.
And I just want to share just a little bit on what you just said. The number on the insurance is so impressive, and in a good year without COVID, it would be impressive. But there were so many unknowns going into forecasting this year. And just like I mentioned before, how we sort of very vigilantly keep an eye on the operational costs and find ways to bring that down. Joanne and Joe were on the phone weekly, if not more often, talking this through and making adjustments and making that work. And, that doesn't just happen, right? That's a year of really close analysis and tough work in a year that nobody really knew what was going to happen. I mean, you could have gotten all kinds of different answers from people about, will healthcare resume? Will it spike? Will it, sort of gradually increase? Nobody knew because it was so low coming out of COVID, back the year before. And the other piece is your comments about the money back to the town. When we think about the savings that we had, right, it was about sort of those extracurricular activities that didn't run. We didn't have a football program last year, that, in-house. We didn't have tournaments and other kinds of things that, all sort of build up. So there were a lot of things that we weren't able to offer to our kids just because of the pandemic and what was happening. So as we do bring those things back online, I think you're right, things will start to equalize more.
Other questions, comments? I had a couple question and a comment. You mentioned ESSER 3. Can you elaborate on that and the expectation around timing, funding for that?
I believe Jill has the planning for that, and she presented it last meeting, but Jill?
Yes, so
Can
they
you
do.
refresher on 3?
That's the ARP ESSER grant that we talked about at the last meeting.
Okay.
And so, yes, go
What's the
ahead.
difference between 2 and 3?
It's the priorities.
It's just the timing. Okay.
So it's
Okay.
all about
That's
the
what-
timing and all about the priorities. So the priorities really shifted in the ESSER 3, and those were those 5 priorities that you had to
Yeah.
spend the money in.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. And then I would just comment, to build on what Brendan said too, the claims projection is the accuracy of that is phenomenal. But I would also just want to comment on the fact that I know last year we had to fiercely defend the policy around the ISF. And I think it's just the way that you outline the budget tonight just shows why it's so important. And, I want to highlight that as well. So, any other questions? All right, thank you so much. Yep, motion, yeah. All right, so would someone like to make a motion to approve the transfers as outlined in the fiscal year 21 end of year financial report? Brendan, second. Bob, all in favor? Okay. All hands up, thank you. All right, good. And now the Eversource on-bill financing. Right, Dr. Keating? Right. Yeah.
So this is a program that we actually took advantage of with the elementary schools. And it's on-bill financing at 0%. So it's a very good deal. And the concept is that you pay off the loan with the savings that you get from the energy savings. So we went out to bid for the interior LED lighting projects at Sax and the high school. The total gross cost is $1,462,426. We assign our incentives from Eversource to the vendor. So the total incentive that we were able to receive for this program is $404,960, which is 27.7% of the cost, which in this environment is very good. We had a base amount of roughly $300,000, and we were able to get an added incentive of $100,000 by putting in things like the boiler at Saks, at South, the same thing. So they were able to give us more incentive because we had other programs going on for energy conservation. So the net cost to the district is $1,057,466. We have in our budget $544,033. So we will finance on a 48-month basis $513. So the net savings in years 1 through 4 will be paid for by the savings in energy. After year 4, it's approximately $120,000 plus that will be a savings, a direct savings, and that's in today's dollars. So as rates go up, that savings will automatically increase over time. The useful life of the program is 10 years. So it will be a nice additional payback and reduction to the budget for a 6-year period.
Questions? Okay. With that, is there a motion to approve on-bill financing for Phase 2 of the LED lighting replacement project at Saks Middle School and the New Canaan High School in an amount not to exceed $525,000? Penny, second. Deanna, all in favor? Sherry, you good? Okay. Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Okay, next is the BOE policy number 1101 on remote participation. This is a second reading. So with that, is there a motion to approve as a second reading Board of Education policy number 1101 on remote participation?
I have a question before we have a, or is discussion after the vote?
Yeah,
I have
I'll take the motion and the, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a motion? Pat? Second? Penny? Okay, discussion. Go ahead, Deanna.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that I assume this policy becomes effective once the governor's COVID executive orders expire. So I just want to make that clear that that's how that's going to work.
Yes, yep, the
Okay.
state statute overrides Board of Ed policy on things like, yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor? Oh, Sherry, go ahead.
So I just had a comment. Like, I know this policy relates only to Board of Ed members, but I do just want to amplify, we all received some emails from members of the public who have questioned that we've no longer allowing the Zoom participation for public comment. And just, stating the obvious, we are in a situation where we have members of our public unmasked attending our meetings, and it is making other members of the public uncomfortable, feeling that it's not a safe environment. So I just feel like we as a board need to acknowledge this and discuss as appropriate.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
We didn't take the vote yet.
Yeah,
on
let's
this
take the
policy.
vote,
Let's
and I
take the
think
vote,
it's
and
two
then I would
separate,
like
because
to
it's.
discuss Sherry's. I just don't want to lose the
Yeah.
vote on this first.
Right. This is separate. So all in favor? Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay.
Discuss remote
Okay.
participation in the front.
All right.
So, just a comment, just to Sherry's point in the emails we got today as well. I think it would be good for us to look at a way to allow remote participation in public comment if we can.
Okay. I think we can look to add that as a discussion item at a future meeting.
Yep, the current executive order does give flexibility for boards of education and other boards to make that determination for what's most effective for their meetings. So the board can have that discussion, make that decision.
Yep.
Noted.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd
That would be
say.
for another meeting though, because it's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
I would think that would be for a different meeting.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to our district goals. This is the second reading of our district goals. So I'll go ahead and make the motion, and then we'll have discussion. Motion to approve is a second reading, the New Canaan Public Schools district goals for 2021, 2022. Penny, second. Pat, discussion. Okay. So before us, we have the revised copy, including edits from our last meeting. And you all had that in your email as well. So at this time, do we want to just move through goal by goal quickly and see if there are any additional questions or comments? Is that okay?
Yeah, whatever works best
Yep.
for the board. We can entertain individual questions. We can I can highlight the highlights.
Yep.
Whatever's the best way to facilitate the discussion.
I think
Okay.
the highlights are straightforward.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they flowed straight out of the Board of Ed's
Yep.
discussion earlier, but there may be some other questions that have arisen that we're glad to discuss and process.
Okay. I had a suggestion under Goal 1, Objective 1, around curriculum. I would like to suggest the addition of F, which would read something like, we can edit the language, but to share a presentation with the board to review our curriculum development process, including an update on legislative changes to curriculum and the process to review and implement these changes in New Canaan.
Where would that go?
1F it would be.
So goal 111F, okay.
Yes, goal 11F. Sure. It probably needs a little wordsmithing, but share a presentation with the board to review our curriculum development process, including an update on legislative changes to curriculum and the process for review and implementation in New Canaan.
So
I think the idea being just to clarify the process, because I think there are a lot of questions around it, and just to have a board presentation and discussion, including, you know, what's happening at the state level. Because I know we talked about, and we've added elsewhere, more inclusion with and interaction with the legislative aspects of what's happening, but this is specific to the curriculum goal.
I think that's a great addition.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Okay.
I think you probably can get rid of the first 3 words on wordsmithing, share a presentation, just say update the board.
Yeah, that's fine.
Typically we're updated with the presentation, but I think that's a great addition.
You know what though, Penny? I would like to say it as a presentation, because an update could be an email. And I think what Katrina has said is a formal presentation, and I think that's an important part of this.
Okay.
Fine.
So we don't need to wordsmith now. I'm only thinking there's 2 components here, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's our process for curriculum development, and there's the legislative changes and pieces. That may be 2 different pieces, because we may reach out to somebody, say from CABE, to come down and talk about legislative changes that could include that as part of their discussion. So, I mean, whether it's a presentation or presentations, I think we're okay
fair.
either way, right? Okay,
I mean, it could be, you know, an intro with like A and B or 2 parts.
Yeah, it can happen on the same night even, and just
Same
sort
line.
of, you know, we're looking to show whether or not there are through lines between what's happening at Hartford, what we're doing here,
Yeah.
you know, sort of how
That's the key.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
what's
that's
going on there and how does it actually impact New Canaan?
Exactly.
So we start by understanding our process, and then we understand what's happening there, and then we can piece that all together.
Yeah.
Got it. So if everyone's comfortable, we can take those concepts, wordsmith, to get to whatever the final language is going to be. But that's the key, right, is those 2 big pieces.
Yeah.
The only thing is I think it would be important to also cover the interplay of those 2 things. So when there's legislation from the state and it has certain requirements, how we conform to those requirements and with what kind of scope for latitude. And just practically speaking, you know, how we do that implementation and incorporate it into the other, you know, New Canaan specific
And that's exactly
curriculum development processes.
Yep.
Exactly. That's, yep.
So we can use a real example or 2 to show how that's played out in the past, and then also learn about what's coming to see and see that interplay. I think that works well. Okay.
You know, I think that'd be really interesting, because we've always taken sort of the state requirements and then we've turned them into New Canaan's curriculum and made it work for our students. And we've always had the flexibility to do that. I just think it'd be interesting, you know, for me to hear it again, how we're doing it, and for the public to know. So, thank you. That's a good addition.
Dr. Krenti?
Okay.
We're happy to present and share the process and talk about the integration of legislation. That's wonderful. I'm happy to do it.
Great.
And I have a crew of people that would love to come and present.
Fantastic.
We know that.
They're dying to get back here and present.
Yep.
We'd love to have them.
Good.
Great. Okay, so that's goal 1. Goal 2.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Sorry, I'd like to chime in on goal 1. I think it's related in that it's, you know, curriculum, but I was kind of hoping to see something in this goal, in the goals, that addresses sort of COVID, the effects of COVID on learning over the last 2 years, whether it's, you want to talk about learning loss or learning things that have changed over time. how we would measure that and then how we would remediate that. I mean, but to remediate, you got to sort of quantify it. So I'd love to see something in this goal document related to COVID and learning loss over the last 2 years.
So in October, I do a presentation on data. We actually have Mr. Egan come, and he gives a report on the high school data and the performance of our students on Connecticut SAT Day, as well as our AP exams. And then I usually try to give an overview of the 3 through 8 Smarter Balanced results, as well as any district assessments that we have. So that is part of what we do every year. This year we will have data to report out. Last year we didn't have data to report out, and we were really using our district assessments and our NWEA, which is something that we can follow from fall to fall as far as our growth models with students. So I'm plan on presenting again in October, but I'm happy to add it as an objective if you feel like you would need it there. But
yeah, I would agree. I think, it's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it, and it's a hot button issue. I think, sort of the growth, really focusing in on the growth model and where we are. I mean, I think we've all talked about, we're sort of at the top of the testing levels everywhere. And so how do we relook at how we're doing? And then, and I know you've already started to look at it differently, but I think we also need to look back and see sort of that growth model. How has it shifted because of COVID? I don't know how you do that. You're the expert in that, but I think it's
right.
It's a critical piece to what's been happening the last 2 or 3 years.
So unfortunately, the state has put the pause on the growth model because we're back to kind of a baseline again. And certainly as you start to sort through the data, it's looking at the number of students who were in person, the number of students who were hybrid, the number of students who were fully remote. So the aggregating the data becomes even more complicated as you're looking at those spring results this year. So we're looking at all of that data right now, trying to aggregate it and make sense of it all, and knowing what we know about our district assessments in comparison to our state assessments is really critical at this point. But the growth model, because we didn't have data in 2019, there's not going to be that growth model that I shared with you 2 years ago from that 2018. So it's just something that we're going to have to look at probably as you move into the data from next fall. That's when you'll be able to look at that growth model again. So
is there a
we can look at data from 2018, and you can draw some conclusions about the data that you have from 2021. But once again, we're going to have to aggregate out all that data of how many students were in person, how many students were remote, how many students were hybrid. So there's a lot of different ways that we're going to have to look at the data.
So I would actually, I would agree with Bob. I actually think this would be a really, it's a good idea. It's appropriate to put it in. When we started on the first read, we talked about, removing a lot of things that were novel or different at one time, but now we're routine. But this area is now no longer routine because it's, got very particular problems. And actually everything that you just talked about, I think that was Dr. Carenti. It's hard to see who's actually.
Yep.
You actually just sort of gave a brief of an expanded discussion of the measurement challenges, which is one of the things that Bob pointed out, given, certain testing has stopped. And I think we really do need a comprehensive view as to what were we measuring before, what measurement stopped, what challenges does that present, some of the things you talked about online versus all that, and then to, do our best to try to get our arms around, what happened here and what impact has it had on children over the last, year and a half and still ticking, because it will be profound. I have no doubt about it that the impact will be profound, and we need to do, our best to measure that, as Bob eloquently put it, in order to try to mitigate and remediate and get people back to, these young people back to where they otherwise would have been.
Yeah, I think that I think it makes good sense, and the one of the big differences now, we are always formatively assessing our students, with our localized assessments. And we do have our data presentation that we do annually, usually in October when we get the results. Now, those in-house formative assessments become even more important because the meaning of and the validity of the statewide assessment really has been compromised given the experience of the testing this year, and so we're better off in some ways giving some reports maybe periodically around how we're doing with some of those internal assessments. We've got our teachers meeting on grade levels or in departments and data teams. They're looking through the data. They're making instructional decisions based on the results of the data and how the students are performing. They are, using the data in their practice. And, I think that it makes good sense given where we are and what we've been going through to have some more of those conversations, maybe more than once, as we go through the year. So maybe it's, kind of a periodic update on how we're doing with things. So how does that sound, Dr. Cranty?
I'm happy to present, and I'm happy to bring along people to present with me. So that's fine.
Yeah, I think
We have
it's our core
we
work.
have the data, so it's not a problem to
Yeah.
be transparent and share the information as best as we can as we're sorting through it all.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I know we'll have teachers chomping at the bit to come forward and share and talk and be a part of that discussion, so I think that's great. Okay, so we'll work on just kind of wordsmithing the language with the ideas for sort of ongoing updates throughout the year on our student performance relative to standards, because the assessments we use are standards-based, and then we'll kind of work through that a little bit.
Do we want to call them checkpoints, or is that?
We can, yeah. I mean, periodic
I'm just thinking-
updates.
Yeah, either way, because it's sort of, it's fluid.
Well, and there are times in the year that we are able to get the data teams together wholesale. For instance, November professional learning is often a time where we use a half day or a day to get the teams together to go through some of the data, to make some decisions, and then we do it again later in the year. So it'll sort of coincide with when we're bringing people together to analyze the in-house assessments that we have.
Okay.
Yeah, and Dr. Lutzy, thank you for emphasizing the frequency, because I think time is of the essence here. I think from our last meeting when, we heard about using some of the resources available for social workers and to get people, out into the community for, the impact of this is going to be so varied across students and families. Yeah. Some will weather it very well, and some, for some it'll be devastating. And so, to capture that latter category as quickly as possible to bring them back in the fold and get the resources to, help them catch up and get to where they should be, I think is really important.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
Just
Okay.
one other
Carl.
comment. I would love to hear a little bit more through all this, not just about the academic piece of things, but also, obviously dealing with COVID has taught kids a lot about how to interact with each other, do things online, in person, manage both at the same time. So it'd be good to just, again, it's going to be difficult to measure that, but to hear feedback from, teachers and, other folks within the district around, how kids have progressed through it over what will be, 2+ years. And, how things have changed over time for kids at different levels.
Yeah, I think that's important, not to take a deficit model to all of
Right,
this, right?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
kids have learned different skills. We've accelerated some work with our teachers and others. So how do we, capture
Yeah.
that and share that?
Plus column. Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, plus column.
There's quite a
Okay,
bit.
good. And data related to COVID, something like that. And then okay. Yep. Good. Great.
Great. Any other comments on goal 1?
I had one other on one other one on standards-based grading. We've been kicking this goal around for a while, and I think generally speaking, I don't think people love it. But I'd like to know how we can either agree with it or remove it.
Yeah, we talked about that at our last meeting some, and I think the goal really is to hear an update and have a discussion around it and just learn, because when we last spoke about it, it was right before COVID, and then, it just hasn't been as top of mind as other things, but certainly important. So I think we talked about you coming back in the
Yeah,
near future.
and Dr. Correnti and I spoke about it a little bit today even, thinking that it'd be helpful to have Melinda and maybe a few others come to talk to us about why. Like, so why is it even there, right? What is it? What are the benefits? Why is it something that's in place so that all of us understand it? Then we can have an informed discussion about next steps. And I agree, it's sort of like we're either going to expand it, we're going to remove it, or we're going to keep going the way we are. But it should be, we should learn enough to make informed decisions here around how, what that next step should be.
Sure. I mean, like colleges aren't using it. I mean, I don't know.
But it's evolved. I can say just as a parent with kids that use it, I mean, it's evolved since we last discussed it. So I think it's important for all of us to hear how it's evolved and, then make a decision.
Yeah, there are pros and cons to it, as there are with many things, right? So I think understanding that piece, and then, let's talk it through. I think, and Melinda has, she's probably listening and working on it right now. So we'll talk to her and get that.
They're very busy.
Yeah.
She's probably watching Ted Lasso.
I love that joke.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're still on goal 1. Is that what we're on?
Yeah,
Goal
just
1.
overarching goal 1. Yep.
Or
Okay, so I had a question on the Innovation Center. I was trying to understand what exactly that is. I mean, it sounds like it could be like a Google Drive and then it talks about budget cycles. So I really have no understanding of what that thing is.
Yep, and that, it would be surprising if you did, because we're working on developing that out now. The idea here is to get it started, just to get, you make a commitment to getting something together. Melinda will be involved with that primarily. And as you see in in A right there, it's to spend this year kind of establishing priorities, process, and anticipated outcomes, and then to identify and share with the board and the administration resource needs for the next budget cycle for 22-23. Right, so the idea here is that, and it actually goes a little bit to what we were just saying about identifying and capitalizing on the gains that we've had over the last couple of years. We've accelerated in ways that we couldn't have anticipated pre-COVID, and we want to capitalize on that and continue to accelerate in ways that that benefit our kids and benefit our schools. So the idea is to put something together. It could be entirely in a cloud and virtual. It could be an actual concrete space. My gut right now is it's probably going to be a mix, because we're going to look at what would it take to build out some sort of maker space-ish opportunities for kids where they can drop in and explore and create, even maybe at our youngest levels. So it's sort of it's only at a concept phase right now. And it's here in the goals as just a a step A, not even a step 1, so that we can look to develop this together, coming back to the board, talking about where we are and resources and kind of vision for it. So it's just to get it off the ground. That make sense?
Kinda. I mean, it feels like I'm not sure which is ahead of what, but as a goal, it sounds like we're doing it, and it's just not clear to me totally what it is. So, I mean, I guess it's fine. It sounds like it's a an investigation project. I don't have a problem with that. It just seems like it.
Yeah, Bob, I think, these goals, some of them are end goal, they're the final step, and some of them are the first
kind of
small
aspirational.
step. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the first, study of, do we want to keep, on this? I think it's very interesting. Many schools are doing it. Certainly high performing schools are doing it. Certainly schools in the private sector. And, private schools are, way light years ahead in developing maker spaces, et cetera. So I think it's certainly something that we should, look into for those students that, have a passion for this kind of thing. 'Cause it's certainly something to encourage.
100%.
So along those lines, pre-COVID, Dr. Correnti, Melinda, and I went and visited Scarsdale. They have an innovation center down there. We took a look. We've been in communication with some other places, the MIT lab and others. So this is something that we had started to kind of look at and consider. But again, everything changed in 2020. So putting it back on the table, and now with the added benefit of, again, the acceleration that we've experienced over the last year and a half, I think it's got some real potential.
Yeah. I think it's great. I mean, I think we should be doing more in STEM, more in technology, more programming type stuff. I mean, I'm all for it. I just was curious of what the implications are.
Well, and we'll discuss it, I think, in the detail that you're thinking when we get into the budget workshop, right? And we get into, it's kind of resource needs for 22, 23. I think that's, the goal would be to bring something forward there that can talk a little more specifically about the vision, what we're talking.
And I think Melinda's been coming in front of the board since about 2014. So it's at a place now, it's like, okay, so what is our next step? And how have we integrated in K-8 and really where do we take it to the next level? So this is really more of that study to try to experience where we should go, what we should do, what we should ask of our kids K-12.
Who are the people in administration and amongst faculty that are involved in starting to think about this?
So certainly Matt Salvestrini, who's our digital learning director, Melinda Meyer, who has been really the leader in STEM and our science and really was the person who really integrated those engineering practice standards within our science curriculum and really took us off in first grade. Kids were coding for games on iPads and really teaching that code to our kids. And then certainly Vivian Birdsall, who really leads our program at our middle school and with the energy and the creativity and her STEM labs that she has there. Certainly Jim Zambrano at the high school and his entire department, Roman Sobalski and all of those people, Rachel Martinick, who I know did get married, and I can't remember her married name right now, but those have been really the people that have been at the forefront of this. So we had met as a committee, back in 2014, and we had kind of really developed a plan. And I think we're at a place now where we've outgrown that plan, and now we really need to reassess and try to figure out where our next steps are and how do we capture all the innovation and the creativity that our students are able to do.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
Sounds like there's broad support.
Maybe include some biology teachers in there as well.
Well, we actually do have a biology person at the middle school that has actually led some of that work with it as well. So
Melinda's probably certified and everything.
Melinda actually, I think, is probably listening and already working on it.
Okay.
He's going to be busy.
So, yeah. All right, that was number 4. Any other comments as we move through goal 1? Okay, goal 2.
Oh, sorry. I still have a goal 1.5 C question.
Oh, great.
I'm just not sure what that means. I read that a few times.
Sure.
Evaluate the health program in grades 1 to 4 in 9th grade. Ensure alignment between what is written and what is taught.
Sure.
I completely don't understand what that means.
Sure. The language.
Does that mean?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the language we typically use is fidelity, right? That's taught with fidelity, but that's kind of jargony too. So we were trying to figure out, so by saying it's the written and the taught curriculum, part of that's pacing, right? So our teachers moving through the curriculum at the pace at which we would expect them to. It's alignment across multiple teachers that are teaching the same curriculum simultaneously. You want them to kind of be paced similarly so they can share ideas and resources and grow together. It's common, it's the right and best practice, especially when you're bringing in a new curriculum. We do it really across the board, but when you're bringing something new like the health program and doing that work, you want to, knowing that it's new for folks, you want to be there as a resource for them as they're going through and doing their implementation. And Jill, you can certainly add anything I did.
Certainly, I think the best example is when you're rolling out something new in math in a second grade classroom. What will happen is an administrator will do walkthroughs in every single second grade classroom to assure that the kids are having those same experiences and that they're learning the standards that we're expecting them to learn. Because health isn't taught every single day like math or like reading, you want to be able to have those walkthroughs to make sure that it's being taught with the fidelity. So we put a lot of energy into putting the health curriculum into our K through 4, and then certainly we started over at the high school. So it's really about going and doing those walkthroughs, with Jonathan Adams, with the administrators, just to make sure that we're moving forward with the fidelity, making sure that we're up with our pacing, that we're not spending 3 weeks on nutrition, and it really was only supposed to be a 2-week unit that they were doing on nutrition. So it's really more the fidelity of making sure that whenever we do anything with our curriculum we're rolling out, it's now going back and doing that checks and balances. And that's part of being the administrator as well as a department chair and as well as a coordinator to just assure that it's taught with fidelity.
Kind of that most mature stage of the work.
Okay.
Okay.
Comfortable? Are we good? Moving on?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Goal 2?
So I just for what it's worth, I had a question about kind of in goal 2.5 about what do we mean by that? Like what committees or what involvement? And I just would say briefly, when we put it together, we were thinking about involvement with CABE, the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, with CAPS, public hearings, also with our local reps, whether it's Tom, Will, others that we talk to all the time. I think it's finding those entry points, but really CABE has between their day on the Hill and other things, they have other opportunities to be involved, and that's what we were thinking when we put that together.
Yeah,
for what
that's
it's worth.
And Brian, I was thinking that, in the next set, after the next election, some boards have legislative committees that kind of really are really highly focused on what's happening. And, so that they're, obviously we don't do anything as a in committees, but they would be the most focused on doing that kind of work because it takes a lot of attention because there's a lot of moving pieces and it's constantly changing.
Do we have a CABE rep?
I wouldn't even say it's a CABE rep, to be honest with you, because I mean, I appreciate the work that CABE does, but I think there's work that needs to be done as our own board.
Yeah. CABE communicates with us all regularly, and I do attend the board chair calls, at least every other week. So there is a point of contact there.
And they give us a legislative update, like we get mailed the legislative update every year. So what I envision is there's a lot of stuff that's happening that's not really covered through CABE. And so I think that our board needs to sort of be more engaged at this point.
I mean, my personal view is I don't think that needs to be in our goals and objectives. I think the board at any point in time can, institute a committee that focuses on legislative issues. I think it's most important as a first step. And frankly, we've kind of done this already, but it's good to have a refresh on, what's going on in Hartford and what actually flows down to what goes on in New Canaan. And there's so many different steps in between, what goes on in Hartford and ultimately becomes, a mandate or law. And most, frankly, are more guidance than anything else. But understanding what happens in New Canaan is a good first step. And then as a board, again, we can decide. We could decide tonight. We could decide, in 2 weeks or in 2 years if we want to, have 2 or 3 of us, be more on top of what's going on legislatively or not.
This isn't really for the goals or objectives, but maybe when CABE comes to talk about the legislative aspect and on curriculum, that they can also just talk generally about what they do. I have a very kind of remote sense for the organization. We get emails, from them. Some of them are updates, some of them are advocacy. Some of it seems rather disconnected from what's on our mind here in New Canaan, in terms of our priorities. So I think to kind of understand, what they're all about and be able to position that in our minds as to, how to use them effectively would be useful.
Well, and I would argue sometimes they advocate for things that we wouldn't necessarily be for in this district. So I think, because I have spent a lot of time with CABE as well, and some of the things I just, don't think in this district we would be for. So, and they do have, legislative people that are up in Hartford all the time advocating for Connecticut education. Just, so either we get more engaged with CABE to maybe help direct them in areas but I think it is maybe more than CABE because they don't necessarily always advocate for what we want to advocate for.
Well, I am 100% sure they will be glad to come down and explain sort of who they are and what they do and advocate for themselves. So they're good at that too. So we'll get a legislative
That I would
update
agree
from
with
them
you, Brian.
and have them talk a little bit about the services they offer and go from there. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Goal 3, goal 4.
3 is our TEPL goal.
Yep.
Brian, can you just, in goal 4, define cultural humility?
Oh, I had that.
Since I don't like words, I don't know what they mean.
While you look
Or
that up.
they can mean lots of different things. They can mean lots of different things.
Yeah. Just, we have a D in there, Jill, that's just extra. 4D, 41D.
Yeah, D's mystery.
Yeah, I think it just got added. I don't think anything was deleted from last time.
What happened? I'm sorry. Hold on,
I
Deanna. I'll
support
be there.
the-
in a second.
I say
Oh, no,
delete
no,
D.
don't worry. Oh, you're looking at it. Yeah, it was actually just typo. Oh, it was something that we removed, and just the D got left, so, yeah,
I'm sorry. Okay.
just a typo. We're on goal 4.
Good. All right. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Okay. So cultural humility is an understanding that we all live in a diverse society, right? And understanding that everyone is valuable and important. It's often used related to, let's see, I'm thinking about Mara's presentation to us, Jill. And
So it's also,
Go
though,
ahead.
it's really about being able to look at the mirrors in the windows. So it's being able to see, people that are like you, and also to look in the outside world and to see people that are different from you. And it's also to understand those differences, and sometimes, even though people are often different, sometimes there's similarities. So it's really about that understanding of people and their backgrounds and different places that they come from. Yeah.
So I'll weigh in here. This is Carl. So as I said last spring of 2020, I think this is an extremely important initiative, both for our nation and our community. I also think that there's a lot of, really bad ideas around it, very dogmatic ideas, and they tend to use vocabulary of their own making. And I think that, and they're terms that have they're very loaded. They're very, very well-developed bodies of thought behind them that have been developed in academia. I think we would do well for choosing our own words, generally throughout this process. Like what you just described, I would feel much more comfortable using our own words. How do we think about this rather than one that's been handed to us and has a lot of loaded meaning in it. And I think that this has got to be a guidepost for us as we go through this, is that every idea needs to be an original idea based on, our thinking about it and clear thinking about it and put it into our own words. So if we could, scrub, words that have been handed to us out of this stuff, I think it would be really important for setting that tone of doing what we think is right in an original way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
100%.
That was the basis of the question. So,
I mean, I'd like to see sort of how this stuff is being implemented. We talk about it in this document, but then what does it look like in a classroom, and how does that, what's the end product that's being delivered? I mean, because 100%, Carl, you're right. There's a lot of loaded words that sound good, but might not be at times. And I think we all want the same thing and the best thing for our kids, but I don't want to get into I want it to be a great program that we can be proud of, that we developed. But this is hard for me to get my arms around because I don't know what's in it. It's like Goal 3 is just, it's a lot of edge-of-speak buzzwords, and I'm not clear on what they are.
Well, and I think that's the nature of the goal, is to figure it out and to really work through exactly what you're saying and break it down and make it meaningful for our schools and our students. And it's
completely fair, but it was in our goals last year, and I've seen nothing, and we've done. I'm sure we've done stuff in the classroom, and I have no idea what's there.
Well,
it was on our goals last year as well.
But I do, just to quickly add, and then I'll do that. We purposely put A as our first step here of work, with the hope and plan to get together and to do that work, to have the board work together to develop a district-wide statement and goals around this. And given the state of the pandemic and the challenges that we've had, we've not been able to do that, right? So that's why that hasn't changed. But we are planning to make that happen this year, one way or the other, given that the urgency of that work. So I just that was meant to be a first step into, and it was a year to understand. And of course, we've been disrupted throughout the year.
Yep.
Fair enough. But 3 of those goals have the word continue.
Hold on. Well, wait.
So first of all, this is a very important goal, and I'm glad you brought up that progress wasn't made last year, because I do think we need to hold ourselves accountable to this and add into this goal that presentations need to be made for the board. And Bob, I do take exception to your inference that there is stuff being taught in the classroom without the board's knowledge, because there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread in our own community right now. And as educational leaders, the Board of Ed needs to be ready to stand up and to talk about this, and to talk about the fact that we are committed to fostering a culture of respect and belonging. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, and by you just inferring that, it continues to fuel that misinformation. This is an extremely important goal. We need to hold ourselves accountable. We need regular reports and presentations and updates to the board. We need to move this forward.
Okay, I think Penny, you had your hand raised. We'll go through. I'll call on you.
Well, no, I would agree with Sherry on that. I would just also like to say that, my kids haven't been in the school for a while, but this goal defines things more precisely and moves will help us define a goal and move our curriculum forward. But I don't see this as a great divergence from anything that the school district hasn't been doing for the past 20 years. I mean, we've always tried to teach our kids to be culturally sensitive. We've always tried to foster a feeling of belonging by every child in the district. This is a child-first district, and this is a slightly different way of looking at it, and I have full faith in our administration, in our teachers, and how we go about it, that we're going to do this in a new Canaan way that celebrates every child and creates children that are better prepared to go out into this multicultural world, where some of them are going out and they're putting their feet in their mouths because they aren't prepared for what they're encountering. And it's our duty, I think, as a Board of Ed, to say, look, the world has changed. We need to revamp what we're doing and do it a little bit better to help New Canaan students.
Deanna?
So 2 things. On B, because I just want to be kind of more focused on sort of the language that we're using. Sherry, I really liked your phrase of fostering a culture of respect and belonging. And what Penny said, celebrates every child. So maybe we can get rid of the buzzwords and incorporate that kind of language that's specific to our district, that says what we mean without using sort of buzzwords. So that would be a suggestion for B. And then in A, I just want to make sure, because it's not clear, when you say collaboratively initiate a process, I like to be specific about who's involved in that collaboration, and I want to make sure that the Board of Education is part of whatever process is initiated for developing the district-wide statement.
So I just, on that second one, I can certainly answer that it was meant to be the board, right? It was meant for this to be a process that was all the 9 Board of Ed members and cabinet members. And then we can make a decision if anyone else would be present, but it was focused on the board. Yes.
So maybe we could just be specific about that.
I want to be, this is Carl again.
Carl,
I want
one
to be
sec. Carl, one sec. Brendan's had his hand up,
Okay.
and then we'll go to you, okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
on B, I actually think the language that's in here is, appropriately specific. It's actually pretty straightforward to me. I think we're talking about more than just mutual respect. We're talking about, issues related to, culture and different backgrounds, not just, us as individual people respecting each other. So I think, to me, this one change based on what Penny said, we could say cultural sensitivity instead of humility, maybe a little bit more straightforward. But I actually think that this gets at exactly what we're focused on in a more specific way.
Yeah, how about something like cultural understanding? The cultural humility, I really do think is loaded. And I really want to emphasize that I don't want to undermine this goal. Sherry, in particular for you, from what you said, I want to see this goal happen. If you look at New Canaan, our greatest challenge is obvious. It is an incredibly undiverse place, racially and ethnically, compared to our society at whole. And so our kids are in an environment that puts them at a disadvantage in that regard. It's not reflective of the larger world that we live in. And so we have a big challenge for our own kids, and also so that they can then go contribute, in a positive way to what we want this country to be. But I have real, we need to do it our way if we're going to be successful. And if we are spoon-fed it from whomever, it's going to be detrimental, and it's not going to get us to where we want to go. That's my fear.
I would add that my vision and my goal, my hope for this goal was always that it would allow the board, it would initiate a process, as the language suggests, where we could find a common ground and language that we would choose to use for our district. So, it's easy to use the buzzwords now because that's what exists out there, but that I think New Canaan has shown its ability to be creative and thoughtful and to come together as a community to identify and collaborate around the importance of this and assign priorities. And, it's a long-term plan that would be developed out of this. That's how I view this goal. And this is initiating that process. Okay, so it sounds like we had a couple of changes, little wordsmithing.
What I have
around.
is I think I'm hearing agreement from the board from moving away from cultural humility to cultural understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I think so.
Sure.
Good. Okay.
And the
Can I just make one-
the addition of an accountability measure for presentations or updates.
Got it. Okay, we can do that. Provide regular updates.
I'm sorry, Sherry, can you repeat what you said, because I couldn't hear it?
Just that we're also adding a G relating to the accountability of presentations and updates to the board.
We'll probably just start general, saying provide regular updates, to the board, and then we'll flesh out what that means. Yep. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I think this is an area where we owe some progress this year. We had a lot of former students come reach out to us last spring of 2020, and we got no excuses. Obviously, we got very busy with hands that were dealt to us, and we prioritized things appropriately. But hopefully, as we get some more period of normalcy, we can make progress in this area, our kind of progress.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Goal 5.
Can we just talk about this open choice before we get off goal 4?
Okay. What? You have a question?
So, I do. So, is this goal? We're gonna research, discuss, and then vote on if we participate. Is that what the plan is on that one?
Yeah, in the legislation, there was an expansion of the open choice program, right? That it was included Danbury and Norwalk, 50 students from each with surrounding towns. The RESCs have been charged with developing the plans around that. So CES right now is doing that. And when he's ready, the executive director up at CES, Chip Dumais, has offered to come down and talk to the board, talk through all of sort of what it is, how it's going to work, answer any questions, and share whatever research about that. It is participation by a district is something that a board would be voting on because there's a lot to it. So figured put this as a goal so that we can learn together from Chip and from others. We could have some others come and talk if it'd be helpful. As you may know, Weston and Westport already participate in open choice with Bridgeport, so some of our peer districts are already involved. It's sort of a small scale pilot to be 50 students from Norwalk into I think 5 surrounding districts as a maximum. So, I don't have all the details around all of it. This would start in 22-23, but Chip is working on that now. So that's what this objective is all about.
I think it's completely appropriate and actually really important to have it in there. It's an existing program, and it speaks to the main challenge that we have that I cited.
Great.
Okay. Goal 5. I was wondering about goal 5, number 7. Which is very important. No, hold on. I know it's important, and it is important. No, I was just, wondering if the first step should be to develop like a vision. Don't touch the planetarium. Develop a vision statement or a document, sort of like a scope of work, just to help with the community and to build some excitement around, the possibilities of the planetarium. Because this suggests that we would renovate it next year, which, are we ready to do that?
No, it's probably not next year. This is another thing that was underway when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And we were not using a planetarium because we were putting all kids together in the same space. We have had some vendors come out and share some opportunities that are there. And I've spoken with PTC, PFA folks a little bit about fundraising. The idea is that it would be a public-private partnership. So we would do some fundraising, and we would look to use funds from different things. But yeah, I think this is really not saying we would have this done immediately. It's really just getting it on everybody's radar. It's been on our long-term capital plan for a couple of years already. So it's been kind of moving a little bit closer and closer. Again, COVID sort of changed everything with timing, but this is just to get it on our radar and start having those conversations and getting some presentations. And again, it's something that we can have people come talk to. It's an amazing sort of, I don't want to say culture, but like community is the word. It's an amazing community. When we had our presentation here and we started talking about it and it was in the paper, I had 5 or 6 different superintendents reach out to me to say they have planetariums and they'd love to have me come visit and do different examples. So it's really an asset that it has incredible potential for everyone, not just kids, but the entire community to do things. So I see it as a multi-year project, and the fundraising and public-private partnership, I think, is an important part of it.
Yeah, and so I think the language should just reflect that, it's sort of the building momentum and excitement around the project.
I got a little too aggressive with the language.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think it's not crazy to think that we could have capital for this in next year's budget, right? It might not actually be done Yeah. But it could.
It will be multi-phase,
Yeah.
likely,
Yeah.
because you've got, first,
So-
as you, again, I won't go for too long, but you know the projector is my age. It is, and it's right out of the bridge of Star Trek. I mean, it's got dials and cables and everything, which I love, but not as a teaching tool. The potential is amazing. So we could even have somebody come out, do it before a board meeting sometime, go upstairs and see how it all works and what some of the potential is. So glad to do all of that. I think that there may be some money that we may look maybe in capital this year that maybe we could carry forward to start to build that base and then start doing some fundraising in the community.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think this is a good goal, and then maybe we have sub pieces to this, which are, develop a plan and, look at fundraising options, those kinds of things. But I'm totally supportive of pushing forward.
My aggressive goal.
It's okay.
The only thing I'd add is I would love to have the innovation team take a look at it too.
Oh,
'Cause it
absolutely.
seems
They're
to
part
me
of those
that there-
conversations.
It seems to me there's a lot of cross fertilization.
Oh, absolutely. Melinda was so excited
Yeah.
when they came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deanna, you had your hand up?
So maybe we just get rid of the and renovate, because that's a little premature. And then, the New Canaan High School planetarium plan to increase its functionality, and then say something about exploring public-private partnership opportunity.
Yeah, if people are more comfortable, I'm glad to break out underneath what's here. I will say it will need some renovation because we do need new seats. The dome itself needs some renovation. Years ago, they tried to paint it and it didn't, it's just part of it and that didn't work. So it's going to cost some money and that's why we're going to do it.
So we don't want an all-inclusive plan before we do the seats?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I'm saying there's a renovation that's required. We have, there's a renovation required, and we could build out A, B, C, D underneath about developing the plan and whatever, if you like. Whatever you want. It's all fun. It's all good.
Just as a matter of wordsmithing, how about develop and execute a plan to renovate the blah, blah, blah?
Sure.
Can I comment?
Go ahead.
I think we should have it as a goal to update and renovate. I think we could have the subparts, just like our, DEI initiative. We have that as an initiative, and then we have the steps below it that says, that outline
I'm okay
the
with
things
that.
that we'll do.
That makes sense.
But we can always make the decision not to move forward with a renovation in next year's budget and say it's too much, or we're not getting enough from, the private portion of our public-private partnership. The town's not going to support it, whatever it is, but
Right.
I think it should be our goal to do as much as we can.
We do
with
a
it.
So I liked Carl's language was pretty good. It let us have a little bit of flexibility. I mean, he was basically develop and execute on a plan. So if we can really go full force ahead, and we can get money in the budget, and everything becomes clear, we can do it. So if we just say we want a plan, then we're saying, oh, we'll look at this again in a year, so that we're not making
that
any
makes sense.
progress.
Yep.
So I don't know, there's a lawyer in you, Carl.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're good. Good goal to end on. All right, so with that, those changes, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the district goals?
We're
voting.
Are we voting on this all?
On the goals document as
amended.
as amended tonight.
Well, how do we vote on something we don't actually see the physical amendments? I couldn't vote on something I can't see the amendments, because what you're asking for is a final vote on on the goals that we haven't seen amended.
So just a second, Deanna, we've done this before, and we voted to conclude it. And which one of these changes do you think we don't have? I think we've just agreed on language changes to goal 5. We agreed on language changes to goal 4.
On 4, there was this specific language around the we haven't seen that language
We
change.
made a couple of
Yeah.
minor updates, wording. We went through them.
Right, but I mean, how do you vote on a document you haven't seen the final changes
Well,
on?
I think the changes were essentially very minor, but we can walk through the changes if that would make everybody comfortable and then vote.
Yeah, I think we need to if that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
Dr. Lutzy, were you doing a markup?
Oh, sure, sure.
Or just,
So the first was 1F.
Yep.
Right? And it was share a presentation with the board related to or showing the curriculum development process and the legislative update and
I have
what else?
share a presentation with the board to review our curriculum development process, including an update on legislative changes to the curriculum.
Impact. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
For implementation in New Canaan.
Mhm.
I would just propose we just change the document and vote on it next time. Is it going to throw, like, is it a timing thing? Is it going to throw us off by that much? Or no?
I think that's the biggest change we made, so I think we can do this tonight. I'd suggest we keep going if.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So it's that one, and it's just impacting curriculum or whatever. And then the next was to add provide periodic updates related
On
regarding.
student performance relative to standards or something of that nature.
Yeah, related to COVID, if we wanted to put that in there, just to be
Right.
explicit about that. And that was the
Yeah.
discussion about doing periodic data presentations to keep that conversation going.
And
So
that's
the
gonna be
language,
weird.
so
Is that gonna be
periodic
one-
updates on student performance relative to standards and COVID learning losses.
I don't think we agreed to the we didn't say.
I don't
Losses.
agree to the language of learning losses
Yeah.
at all.
I think the impacts
Okay,
of COVID,
but-
period.
COVID on students.
Impact? Should we just say
Impacts of
COVID?
COVID.
Sure.
Yeah, COVID impact. Or is that 1F, that's 1G? Is that what that is? Is that where we're going to see it?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll put it right there.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then we jump to goal 4. And goal 4B was going to change the term cultural humility to cultural understanding.
We added G.
And the G was to provide regular updates to the Board of Education.
And then the update on the planetarium.
Develop and execute on a plan to update and renovate the NCHS planetarium.
And can you add some language about the Board of Ed in A?
Oh, yeah. Initiate a process with the Board of Education.
Sure, and others, or, because I know Dr. Letzi mentioned there might be others besides the Board of Ed in the,
Yep, okay. Collaboratively initiated process, including the full,
you might be able to get rid of collaboratively and just say initiate a
Yep.
process.
initiate a process, which includes the full Board of Education. That's, yep. Okay,
Okay. Anything else? I think we got it all?
I don't have any other notes.
Okay.
I have provide regular update, is that from something else? I have something, provide regular
We added that
update.
to
Yeah.
goal number 4.
That was 3G in goal 4.
Sorry, wait, so we're, on okay, just provide regular updates to the board on progress.
Okay. With that, all in favor of the goals as amended? Okay. All hands are up, unanimous support. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Very good, everyone.
We will
We
type
did
it up. We'll make sure you and I swap notes, and we'll get it out to everybody tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Great.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Seeing none. Announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzy, you have a couple of important announcements.
I do. I want to take a moment to share a bit of very good news with the board. On behalf of the board, Jen and Deanna have been working together with the Hobbs family to establish a scholarship in Hazel's name through the New Canaan Scholarship Foundation here at the high school. So I just would like to take a moment to share some details about that with the board, and to certainly thank Jen, thank Deanna for that work, and to certainly say to thank Mike Hobbs for his interest in getting involved in helping the graduates here of New Canaan High School in Hazel's name. Hazel was a passionate champion for students in schools, and her legacy will endure in the lives of the children she served. Hazel's formidable intellect, tireless energy, sophisticated grace, and boundless compassion empowered her to live a wonderful life full of meaning and love. Hazel earned degrees in art history and education from Goucher College in Towson, Maryland, where she met her lifetime love and partner, Mike, who was a student at nearby Johns Hopkins University. While teaching and serving as a headmistress, Hazel earned her MAT at Manhattanville College and completed the coursework for her doctorate from Columbia University's Teacher College. Hazel's contribution to education in Connecticut, her contributions are extraordinary and enduring. As a founding member of the First Presbyterian Nursery School, a teacher and writing coordinator right here in New Canaan at Center School, principal at New Lebanon and Hamilton Avenue Elementary Schools in Greenwich, the founding headmistress of Pear Tree Point School in Darien, as an informal advisor to the U.S. Assistant Secretary of Education, a founding board member of Stepping Stones Museum in Norwalk, and a three-term chair of the New Canaan Board of Education. Hazel approached every task with passion and zeal and focused on making sure every child knew they were special. Blessed with authentic humility, she gracefully accepted the well-deserved praise of her colleagues and friends, culminating in 2 different Hazel Hobbs Days, one in Greenwich and one right here in New Canaan. In addition to her direct work with schools, Hazel served just as passionately on the boards of the New Canaan Historical Society, the New Canaan Library, Family Centers, and the Lone Pine Educational Foundation, always with a focus on education. She also received both the New Canaan Community Foundation's Spirit of New Canaan Award and the American Association of University Women Woman of the Year Awards. Hazel was a passionate champion for children and students, and this needs-based scholarship has been established to honor her legacy and to continue her work on behalf of children. It's intended to help a New Canaan High School graduate who reflects the character and spirit of the woman who it honors. So I'm very, very proud to say that working with the New Canaan Scholarship Foundation, Deanna and Jen have had uploaded to their website the link that describes the scholarship, and that an anonymous donor has offered to match every donation that comes in Hazel's name. So it's now live. I'm sure we'll be talking about a press release and other ways to promote this, but given that it just came together, I wanted to just take a moment here to let the board know and to again thank Jen and Deanna for efforts in pulling this together and making it happen on behalf of our students and certainly in Hazel's name. So
Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a perfect way to honor and remember all the work that Hazel did in our
I think she'd be
community.
pleased.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And with that, our next Board of Education meeting is September 20th, week and a half away.
Yep,
All right.
that's right. Very good, thank you. Motion to adjourn. Carl, second. Sherry, all in favor? Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you all.